bike lanes.
Her job, and so did 5 other lawyers who work on public corruption cases in Washington, D.C. Sassoon wrote a letter to DOJ saying there's no good reason to dismiss the bribery case against Eric Adams. In fact, she wrote, prosecutors were considering adding a new charge of obstruction against him. Congressman Raskin says she raised disturbing concerns about a quid pro quo and cover-up inside the Justice Department. He's asking whistleblowers to come forward to Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
Russia is acknowledging some role for Ukraine as it pursues peace negotiations with the U.S. These negotiations are aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. This comes amid concern that the White House was sidelining Kyiv in negotiations with Russia over Ukraine's future. NPR's Charles Maines reports.
Speaking on state television, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Ukraine would be participating in negotiations, quote, one way or another. Peskov said Russia anticipated a two-track approach to talks, one directly with the U.S. and another, quote, connected to Ukraine's involvement. Kremlin propagandists have long painted Ukraine and Europe as subservient to the U.S. and insisted only the White House could deliver a lasting peace. Those same voices have also celebrated President Trump's announcement he would negotiate directly with Russian leader Vladimir Putin to end the war, particularly after Trump appeared to concede to key Russian demands over NATO expansion and Ukraine forfeiting land. Charles Maines, NPR News.
A new poll from NPR and Ipsos finds that Americans remain deeply divided over President Trump's new immigration efforts. The poll shows growing support for more restrictions on immigration, but Democrats oppose nearly all of Trump's immigration policies, including his efforts to overturn the constitutional right to birthright citizenship. NPR's Joel Rose says Republicans are strongly backing the president.
This NPR Ipsos poll shows that Republicans, for the most part, are very united in support of the president's crackdown. 4 out of 5 support deporting all immigrants without legal status. 3 out of 4 support denying federal funding to sanctuary cities that limit their cooperation with immigration authorities. And a big majority of Republicans say the U.S. has been experiencing an invasion at the southern border.
NPR's Joel Rose reporting. On Wall Street, the Dow is down nearly 30 points. The Nasdaq is up more than 40. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Parts of Massachusetts could get buried under 7 more inches of snow Saturday night and into Sunday. National Weather Service says the storm will bring a combination of messy winter weather and potentially dangerous travel conditions across the state. And in anticipation of this storm, a winter weather advisory is in effect for Worcester County and northern and western sections of Middlesex County starting Saturday afternoon and then continuing through Sunday as snow could turn into a prolonged stretch of freezing rain. Forecasters are calling for 3 to 7 inches of snow across the interior of Massachusetts, with a coating of ice possible on top of that. The freezing rain and sleet will stretch across the state by 7 a.m. Sunday, with mostly rain in eastern Massachusetts. Nice and sunny today, though. As President Trump moves forward with plans to deport undocumented immigrants, the Azorean government is bracing for a wave of people returning to their homeland from the south coast of Massachusetts. New Bedford Light reports that officials from the regional government of the Azores met with New Bedford activists and political leaders earlier this month as anxieties continue to grow in the local Portuguese immigrant community. According to Helena da Silva Hughes, the president of the Immigrants Assistance Center, the South Coast's large population of immigrants born in Portugal includes many people without legal U.S. residency who arrived on tourist visas and then never went back. Da Silva Hughes says she's getting calls from people in the local Portuguese communities who are in a panic, and adds that some aren't taking any chances and they're heading back to the Azores on their own. 28 degrees. This is GBH News.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping NPR advance journalistic excellence in the digital age.
It's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Regan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I just want to mention, Henry talked about people from the Azores, born in Portugal, being sent home from New Bedford. It makes me almost in tears because I grew up in Fall River.
What do you mean, deported?
70% of the people I grew up with were people from the Azores and Portuguese people. There were more credit unions in Fall River than any place in the country. At that time, the most beautifully kept homes. It's just, I can't even talk about it anymore. It makes me so upset.
Cruelty is the thing. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi. Back here on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday of next week. No tickets or RSVP needed. Stay as little or as long as you like.
One of the things that's going to lift Marjorie's spirits is we have beautiful, beautiful music coming in about 25 minutes. You want to hear that? And then two of our people, favorite people, Myers and Chang, Christopher Myers and Joanne Chang, will join us with goodies, baked goodies and conversation in the 1 o'clock hour. But first, this past Wednesday here at the library for Ask the Mayor, Michelle Wu announced plans to do away with the bus lane right out here on Boylston Street. From the library up to Berkeley, here's a bit of what she said.
We have heard from community members that this needs to be changed. So we are going to keep the bike lane as outlined in the long-term plans and then move towards reallocating some of the space for the needs that are specific to this street. I think in general, we're thinking about this moment in the city's development and evolution of our roadways. Again, 2013 was a period where 65 miles of bike lanes were constructed in just 3 years as the start to really thinking through our roads.
So for the next, 25 or 30 minutes, it's bus lanes, bike lanes, and you at 877-301-8970. Why has this issue become such a flashpoint for Bostonians with everything else going on that people could be worried about, from housing, affordability, healthcare, immigration, the complete dismantling of our federal government with that guy, Big Balls, that Marjorie is obsessed with? And by the way, it's not just Bostonians and people who visit or work here. It's happening in a lot of our communities, bike lane, bus lane controversies. If you're a biker who feels safer with a designated lane, or a driver whose neighborhood has been transformed into a maze of one-way streets and speed bumps and tighter travel lanes, what do designated lanes do for you? Are you happy to see Wu reconsidering some of these kinds of things? The number is 877-301-8970. Or are you someone from New Hampshire, for example, who just wishes your state would install sidewalks? Forget bike lanes. We invite New Hampshireites who miss sidewalks to give us a call. 877-301-8970. I should make something clear. While the bike lane is not disappearing on Boylston, the quote, part of it was there, is the mayor said she would review roadway changes of the last 15 years and identify recommendations for adjustment. And I should also make clear that Josh Kraft, even though he hasn't come on our show, has said on others, quote, I am for bike lanes. He just doesn't think they're thought out well enough. There should be a pause when you look at the whole big picture and see whether we're doing the right thing. But again, he goes out of his way to say he is not against bike lanes. He's actually for them. 877-301-8970. I laughed at this about 6 months ago before Mayor Wu had a challenger. I honestly think bike lanes are such a symbolic, as I said, flashpoint here. Even if you're not affected by them in your particular neighborhood, I think they could be a pivotal thing in this race, don't you think?
I think they've become a political symbol. You know, it's American flag, that's now with Trump. Crosses around the necks of women,
goes again.
That's with Trump.
Yeah.
And bike lanes are people that are people that are Trump people, so it's all the same thing.
I have to say I'm concerned about bike lanes, and I don't remember if I voted for Trump. I don't think I did.
Well,
so, I mean, bike lanes are not just some right-wing kind of concern, you know. They're just not.
Well, the reason why do we have bike lanes?
Because it is good for the environment.
That's right.
Yes. Okay, fine. 877-301-8970.
The environment stuff. It's a hoax, Jim. It's a hoax.
By the way, our music today has a climate theme too, which is actually quite wonderful.
But you know something? I think it's a pain in the neck the way they got Boylston Street. We drive on the same section when we leave here every day after the library. It's a weird construction there. But what the mayor has said, and I think it's right, is if it's not working, you got to fix it. Some places the bike lanes work really well. You know where they work really well?
No.
Commonwealth Avenue.
They do?
They're on the left-hand side of the road. They're not separated. The drivers aren't separated from the bike lane, so that's not
Well, then they
ideal.
don't work. If they're not, it's not a physical barrier. It is unsafe.
Well,
I'm sorry.
But it works well in terms of the traffic going along together. Other places, they don't work well. So I don't think they work so well behind our station in Brighton. You know, you get people, the traffic is now like 30 cars lined up at the red light because of the bike lanes. I mean, that's probably not an ideal situation. So maybe you adjust them, and that's what's happened here with Boylston Street, which seems to me the way you do it.
By the way, you should, and you know, you're one of the most ethical journalists I've ever come
I know,
across
you're
in my
going to tell me
life.
about the bus lanes.
You should disclose
Yep,
what your
I do.
position is on bus lanes
Okay.
for new listeners
Well,
to the show.
here's the other thing, and it's a common sense kind of thing.
No, I just
if you want to breed hostility toward bus lanes,
Yeah.
you have a situation like they have in Huntington Avenue where there's like 50 cars lined up going by the MFA,
Yeah.
and there is this huge empty bus lane. I don't think there's anything wrong with driving in the bus lane.
Which you do.
And when you see a bus
you
coming,
do.
you get out of the
Yeah.
bus lane.
You didn't say what you do.
That's what I do.
That's what you do.
There's a lot of people do, Jim. You know what it is? It's in the words of Donald Trump, common sense.
You know what else it is in
What?
the words of other people? Illegal.
Illegal.
877
But it shouldn't be illegal. It should be a
301
common sense approach.
89
Because it's not good for the climate to have 50
Rather
cars lined
defensive,
up.
are we not today?
I'm still upset about the people from the Azores, I got to admit.
By the way, it is horrible.
Yeah, especially when, like I said, let me just say one last thing.
Say anything
the
you want.
best people, you know, that took beautiful care of their property and became very important in the city. And we did have that unfortunate mayor that went to jail, but except for him, we've had very, very good people, people that came from St. Michael's on the Azores, and it's just despicable that they've been here for years. And
One mayor went to
out.
jail, and one mayor was making out with Marjorie under the stands. That's true, on the football field.
You know, it was
true
a
or
peck,
false?
It was a peck on my
True
cheek.
or false?
Peck on my cheek when I was
Under
12
the
years
stands
old.
at Durfee High
No, it was in the
School.
Oak Grove Cemetery, actually.
What?
Jim.
Okay.
Get your facts right.
Let me tell you. Okay.
That's where you went, the Oak Grove Cemetery.
Bike lanes and bus lanes, a huge issue in the Boston mayor's race. And it's a huge issue in Cambridge, where I live. It's a huge issue everywhere that has bike and bus lanes, or if you even travel into cities that have bike and bus lanes. Towns. Caroline and Newton, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
This is my third or fourth time calling in. I love you guys.
Should hope
Thank
so.
you.
Go ahead.
And Marjorie, I'm sorry about the Azore people. The
So,
Azores
me
thing.
too. People from the
bad.
Azores, yep. Portuguese
They're
people.
lovely people. Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
anyway, I had a kind of a different take on this. I don't
Please.
know. It might be controversial, but I feel like the mentality around the way we treat people on bicycles needs to change more than... I mean, look at Europe, how people all over the place, people bike everywhere, and there's so much respect for that. And I feel like, especially like Brookline, Beacon Street, Newton, where I live, people are crazy. And they're not always respectful of the bike people.
I agree with that, but can I throw some? By the way, I agree with everything you said, with one however. Brian McGrory, even though former editor of the Globe, pretends like he never wrote a column years ago saying we should ban bike lanes. So let's forget that for a minute. He wrote a column saying we should get rid of the bus lane here, and or sometime late last year. He was talking to the guy who's in charge of roads and streets or whatever, who I hear is a wonderful, competent kind of person here in Boston. And he compared it to the Champs-Élysées. And Brian Googled the Champs-Élysées, and it's 6 lanes wide. And I guess comparing it to Europe, which has in most cases, far wider streets than the narrow streets of Boston, is not really a fair comparison, I think Brian would say, and I agree with him. Other than that, excellent call, Caroline. Thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
You know what they added? Over there in Grand Paris, they added trees, which they call terraces. And then it also added a dedicated lane for delivery vehicles and taxis. And Brian was complaining about Boylston Street, where he said they smushed everything together. A biker just tells me I'm wrong. Commonwealth Avenue is not good for bikers, so take that,
it's
Marjorie.
true.
Jim, this is for you. Will
thank you.
Cambridge follow Boston and get rid of bike lanes in front of bakeries? And I think that is a reference to your complaining about the bike lane near the bakery where you had to go by yourself and pick out your own birthday cake.
Well, by the way, the bakery is the bakery owned by our two guests at 1 o'clock Flour, where it was my birthday. And it's funny, when you retell a story that's critical of me, it's funny. When I retell a story, Jimmy, you got to tell that story again? It is true. I was buying my own birthday cake, and I had to walk a block, and I was upset. 877-301-8970. Lisa in Medford, we're talking about bike and bus lanes. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
So, bike lanes. I'm all for them. I've been a cyclist through the city, not so much anymore. I do agree with the common sense approach. One of the best bike lanes I think we have is the one that goes through Somerville all the way into Boston, and it's off the main road. So it's kind of following the rail trail. It keeps the rider safe. And it's very much, I did a bike and barge in Brussels. They're very bike friendly. All cars have to yield to cyclists and such. Very similar to our roads, small and narrow. But it's the approach to it that we really have to consider. And one thing that I'd like to add, every time I see people talking about bike lanes and they're against them, one of the common arguments is, but what about the elderly? They need to be able to drive and to park. I agree with that. Not everybody can cycle. Not everybody can walk. So let's make sure that we reserve spots for people that actually need them. But for the rest of us, let's make sure that we're being environmentally conscious and we're doing something. Our roads cannot hold all the cars that people want to put on them. And I'd just like to make one more quick point.
Before you go ahead, Lisa, before you make your final point, I think what I would say, and I agree with most of what you said, and roads can't help all the cars. A critical ingredient to get into the place where bike lanes work and people drive less is when Phil Wang works his magic at the T, and the T is even more reliable than he has made it to be. If mass transportation is not a real thing in a city, people are going to get in their cars. That's the reality. But your final point is what?
You stole my thunder. Thunder. That was the point I was going to make.
Great.
We have to do better with public transportation. We have to have a full suite of solutions for this.
So, Lisa, thanks. When is Phil Wang here to take questions? You guys can tell us the date. It's sometime in March. General Manager of the T. What, Marjorie?
I was going to read some text.
Do it.
Sean in Arlington says this is a culture war thing. If you listen to sports radio, they are always ridiculing bike lanes, so that could be a big thing. It's kind of one of those issues that they clamp down on. And then Tommy from Southeast says, drivers seem to forget the speed limit in Boston is 25 miles an hour. Not that anybody is going 25 miles an hour.
I thought they lowered it, but I guess they didn't. Okay.
Well, how much lower can they?
I thought they lowered it to March to 20, but I don't know. Go ahead.
20?
I thought so. We had a big fight about this, you and I, off the air.
Yeah. Well, that's really
because Marjorie drives over the speed limit. Not only is Marjorie driving bus lanes, by the way, and then makes up excuses about how I'll get out of them as soon as the bus comes, she drives well above the speed limit on most streets and highways.
Okay. Well, I mean,
she didn't deny it, did she?
There's nobody driving 55 miles an hour in the Mass Pike except for Jim Browdy
and Michael Dukakis
from Cambridge.
That is correct.
That's right. You and Michael Dukakis.
That is correct.
So Tommy from South, he says it's a little discomfort to get people to slow down, and he thinks by installing bike and bus lanes, this is one example of how to get people to slow down.
But the key with the bike lane, let me just say, you're going to say, Jim, don't speak for us because you're not an expert. I'll speak anyway. They need to be segregated. They either need to be physical barriers, or the brilliant thing that's done on a couple of streets around Boston and Cambridge is where the car parks off the sidewalk, and the space between the parked car and the sidewalk is the bike lane, which protects them from traffic. By the way,
which is much less chance of the driver opening the door and smashing a person on a bicycle.
The general manager of the T, Phil Wang, who has been wonderful in terms of transparency, at least according to me and Marjorie, will be with us at the library on March 12th from 1 to 2, taking your calls and questions.
And 25 miles per hour is the speed limit citywide in Boston. It's been that way since 2021. It's rare to see someone going 25 miles an hour, but I suppose there are a few.
Lori in a car, what's up?
I just wanted to say that when I am riding my bike, everybody in the car is a jerk. And when I'm driving my car, everybody on the bicycle is a jerk.
That's
You're
an
my
excellent,
kind of person,
that's
Lori.
an excellent
That's
point,
great.
Lori, because that's so true. So does that explain the hostility?
Yeah, it does, because it's set up that it's not really safe for anyone.
Yeah. Well, it was Shirley Young was great. She drove, I think, from her house in Milton
She did.
into downtown Boston with a bike biking expert, so she could get all the
road
the
on
ins
her
and
bike.
outs.
Yeah.
And
She said she was petrified.
Petrified the whole way. Yeah, I think a lot of people are petrified. Somebody texted a little while ago
Lori,
saying
thanks.
that they did some survey involving college students, and a lot of them are petrified too, even though they're young kids thinking they're invincible. And one of the things that makes them even more nervous is the scooter issue. You know, the delivery, the guys running around delivering.
They're in the bus lane and the bike lane.
They're in all lanes. Sometimes they're going backwards.
They are going
That's
back.
a
Can I say one
disconcerting.
thing before we take a break here, which also aggravates the cyclists, and my apologies.
Listen to this one.
What's that?
When I'm walking, everyone biking and driving is a jerk.
I think that was that you, Jamie?
That's a good one.
Of course,
That is a
thank
good
you.
point.
Let me just say this
Yes.
before we take a break.
Yes.
The other issue that I know has upset cyclists on the show in the past, the traffic laws have to be enforced. One of the things that really gets me crazy, because you worry about killing a cyclist.
That's not going to happen, Jim.
They can't run red lights.
Unless
they have to obey the traffic laws.
You don't like cameras, right?
No, I do not like
Well,
cameras.
that's the only way it's going to happen.
Actually, cameras on cyclists I'm okay with. That I can. No, I'm serious. I mean, it is a real serious problem. And you know what they do in Cambridge occasionally on Mass Ave, usually around MIT?
Yeah.
Once a month or something when I'm driving in, there's a cop there who stops. I hope he doesn't, or she, or they don't give tickets, but they at least do a warning. You got to obey the same rules that a driver
That's right.
does
We do not
for
have
your safety and ours.
enough police officers to stand around in every corner of the back bay seeing who's doing the right thing. On Boylston
By
Street,
the way, they're not, what do you call the thing? Detail. Oh, some of them are detailed.
they
by
are.
the way.
Some of them are
Okay,
detailed.
fine.
You could have like cadets, like people that are in training for police, I suppose, but there's not enough of them either.
Marjorie is responsible, for new listeners, the only change to the detail laws in Massachusetts is a
That's
true
right.
story.
That's right.
Every month that Deval Patrick came
I
on our
harassed
show,
him.
Marjorie harassed him, and honest to
That's
God,
right.
I am totally convinced, and I said this to the governor, the only reason he made a minor change was to shut Marjorie up.
Okay, well, I would say of the details in Massachusetts on a daily basis, I would say 5% of them are not police officers.
I would
so
say,
I wouldn't
I
wouldn't go overboard
Well,
on what
you won something.
I did. I got maybe a 1 or 2%
You opened the
change,
door.
but I'll
You
take
did.
it. Anyway,
Thank
we're
you.
talking about bike lanes, the hostility between bike lanes and drivers, or among bike drivers and people who are walking. What do you think? It's a big issue in Boston. It's a big issue in towns all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Are you for them? Or again, on bike lanes, that is. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Marco Werman. The World's Newsroom brings you the big picture stories and some other stuff.
The reason why you slurp is not just to make a loud sound.
There's a lot of very slimy foods in lots of cultures that don't work exactly in the grammar of American food.
And I guess frog fallopian tubes are slimy.
They're not exactly slimy, they're sort of gelatinous.
Join us and hear the world.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked /1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. And Boston Children's Museum, presenting National Engineers Week this February school vacation week, featuring Lego engineering challenges, creative programs, and more. Tickets at bostonchildrensmuseum.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Live music from the Boston Lyric Opera. In a couple of minutes, we heard the rehearsals. Totally beautiful. Lift your spirits. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Mayor Wu's decision to phase out the bus lane here on Boylston Street, to take a look at all roadway changes of the last 15 years. At the same time that Josh Kraft, her challenger, is talking about pausing bike lanes. Not against bike lanes, but wants to get a big picture. He says, our number is 877-301-8097. We were talking about bus and bike lanes. And by the way, I'm very disappointed. Nobody is calling from New Hampshire to discuss the lack of sidewalks.
Well, there are some places. There are some places
few.
that have sidewalks, but not that many.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's someone who texts kind of sums up the whole dilemma, the hostility on either side for the drivers, the bikers, if you're on the highway, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Everyone who passes me is a maniac, and everyone I pass is a moron.
Well, it's the same as that woman who called.
Is that a good
couple
one?
Of minutes. It's a very good one.
I like that
you
one.
Want to go to Andrew in North
Andrew,
Attleboro?
hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
This is my second time calling, long-time listener. Thanks
really
for having me. Happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you.
So I want to try to make it as quick as possible so I'm not taking a bunch of airtime. But I personally have an electric bike. I was gifted by a YouTuber, actually.
Oh.
And I drive it basically everywhere because I was in a total loss accident, not my fault. But I've received a lot of hostility on the road. Recently, I was on my way to a store, and somebody from Rhode Island tried to kind of like not ram into me, but move their car in my direction to scare me and honk their horn. Turned out we were going to the same store, and we were standing right next to each other in the checkout line, and I expressed my disdain for them, and my cashier said, well, when I'm in the car with my friends, we play the game where bicyclists are 15 points.
Oh, my God. Okay, Andrew, before you go ahead, how did you express your disdain, to use your expression?
Oh, I can't say it on the air.
Okay, go ahead. Continue. Go.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Basically, I called him a jerk. I was like, this guy over here is a jerk. I can't believe he tried to run me off the road. He also offered to buy me something in the store, and I said, dude, I don't want anything from you. You probably just feel embarrassed because you just made a mistake and we're at the same place. So just shortly after that, I had an old woman who did basically the same thing to me. I'm on residential roads. I'm not in the city. Mm-hmm. So she honked her horn super loud, and then I met with her at a stoplight, and I said, you can't do that. I'm following the rules of the road to the best of my ability. I move out of the way for cars who are coming up behind me. I have a horn. I have lights. I use my turn signals on my hands because I don't have turn signals on my bike. But the cherry on top of the story is we had a part-time, retired police officer who lives in North Attleboro get hit by a car in the center of town on his electric bike because we have very few bike lanes, and we have drivers who don't have empathy for bicyclists. And a lot of us are riding bicycles because we don't have another mode of transportation.
Can I tell you, you are a great spokesperson, even though you're only talking for yourself. That was excellent.
That's great points, Andrew.
Thank you.
Guys.
I like that you took on these people, too. Now, here is Aiden has been screening.
Monitoring the text.
Yes. Many people in New Hampshire are saying you can get, this is because we're talking about no sidewalks, they are saying you actually can get anywhere in New Hampshire hopping from pothole to pothole, which is, actually it's a nice way to travel.
Well, we have someone on the phone from New Hampshire.
Oh, look where they're calling from,
Hancock,
too.
New
Hancock,
Hampshire.
our favorite town.
I think they do have sidewalks in Hancock.
I don't think so. Hi, David.
What do you think, David?
Guys, I'm sorry to say, we have a sidewalk in Hancock.
Good.
One sidewalk.
We have one sidewalk, and then we have an old towpath. And, and I'm on my way over to Peterborough right now, which is like sidewalk heaven for New Hampshire.
Yeah. How many sidewalks they have there?
I think they've got 6, Jim.
Let me tell you, that's rather radical, David.
But Jim,
yeah.
Jim, the other thing I wanted to say was,
Please.
I agree with you 100% that bike riders have to obey. I rode for years my bike in New York and in Philadelphia, and always obeyed the traffic. And it actually became a game to see how long you could stay erect on your bike at a stoplight without putting your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, David, that was an excellent call from one of our favorite towns, Hancock, New Hampshire. Thanks
New Hampshire.
for the one sidewalk. We've been to Hancock. Did you see a sidewalk?
I don't think I saw a single sidewalk.
I don't think I saw. But David, I'm sure, is telling
David
the
knows
truth.
better than I do. He said he saw him, so we believe him.
877-301-89. So you remember, I've told you this story, too.
What?
That I actually bought a bike, which I could not afford when I was working in New York City.
Yes.
And at this time, I lived on the Upper West Side. This is a true story. This is no hyperbole. And I decided to ride it from the Upper West Side to where my office was, which was Lower East Side of Manhattan. And about halfway through, maybe in the 40s on Broadway, I got a flat tire. I did not know how to change a flat tire, an expensive bike. I picked up the bike, put it in the garbage can, and took the subway. Just totally true story. That was my one cycling experience in New York City.
I can see it. I can see it right now.
You
Jim.
can?
The more things change, the more things don't change.
Exactly.
Let's go to Chris in Cambridge. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Hey there. Happy Valentine's Day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm a member of the Cambridge Bike Safety Group.
Oh, great.
And I have to say, it has been transformative here for us to have more bike lanes and to rethink the way the roads are laid out. I think it's been really tricky in the short term. I feel people are, many of the projects do go through really smoothly and nobody notices them, and people are safer. But it has been really hard in the short term, and I think people are feeling that with Boylston Street and some of the newer bike lanes, where there is just so much transition happening at once.
Yeah.
Changes with bus lanes and bike lanes at the same time, and narrowing and loading, are all getting compressed. But I think at the same time, many of these projects do get better over time. They get tweaked, and people feel so used to them after a year. And then ultimately we have a much safer street for everyone. And I think that's where we need to think in the future, is once we build this network, people will be able to get around. And there are so many things that people have brought up on these calls that it is just really stressful out there. People, when you're walking and crossing the street, drivers are distracted. They're doing errands and their jobs, making deliveries, and they're just not paying the attention they need to pay. And it's really dangerous for pedestrians, for older folks, for younger folks getting around. So we've seen these things be really transformative here, and I think it is a short-term challenge. And I have to say, I feel it's almost a little bit narrow and almost childish to focus on only one issue like bike lanes for a mayoral election. I think what the mayor has to do is a really broad set of things. I hope that we hold that to account a little bit this election.
Yeah, but Chris,
there's so much to do in the city that's not just about bike lanes.
I want to be fair. That's my characterization, and I think Marjorie agrees with me. I wasn't suggesting that the person who has bike lanes at the top of their list doesn't care about other livability and affordability things. Before you go, Chris, since I live in Cambridge too, my basic issue with bike lanes in Cambridge is the issue that the caller, she wasn't from Cambridge, mentioned a while ago. I wrote a piece for the Globe about a decade ago about the bike lane thing, where a lot of small businesses were losing a lot of their business in Cambridge because older people couldn't walk the 3 blocks they had to walk because all the parking spaces were eliminated.
A lot of people are complaining about that.
And so I think that's the area where more compromise should have been made, and hopefully will be made in the future. Is that an unfair criticism by me? Quickly, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So nationally and internationally, people have seen that small businesses do better when people who are actually at the street level are able to move around more easily. So we've seen this in Cambridge. There was sort of this uncertainty around a bunch of our projects, whether businesses would go out of business. Some of the earliest projects we had were on Cambridge Street and on Brattle Street in Cambridge. And both of those have no abandoned storefronts.
Well, Chris, if I may, I interviewed, and they were on television nationally, people who own a haircutting place in North Cambridge right before you get to Arlington, who lost 75% of their business, they say, maybe only in the short run. I haven't spoken to them in a few years. Having said that, Chris, it was an excellent call, a well-informed call. Call us again. Thanks so much for being with us.
A lot of people are texting about that. So somebody that lives far away and drives into Cambridge, it would take her too long to get there on the T, and she has to move her car all the time. They've eliminated up to 60% of the parking spaces on Broadway between Portland Street and Quincy Street. You might know that area.
I do.
And I know where I've gotten my hair cut for a long time in Brookline. Same thing. She feels she's lost a lot of business because people don't want to come there and have to drive around endlessly looking for parking spaces. So they just find a new place to get their hair cut.
I don't know if you know that I was on the Cambridge City Council and retired
That's right. Undefeated.
You probably do.
I do.
If I were still in the Cambridge City Council, you know what I would propose?
What would you propose,
I think
Jim?
you'd support this. Getting rid of the sidewalks, making them into bike lanes. How about that? I think that would be an excellent...
New Hampshire's doing very well. They may have to hop from pothole to pothole, but apparently they're very happy with those sidewalks up there in New Hampshire.
Before we leave this segment, Jamie just reminded me in terms of Cambridge and bike lanes. Who was here? The head of the Denise Gilson was here a couple of weeks ago. The head of the Harvard Square Business Association,
yeah.
And she made the comment that the newsstand, the kiosk in Harvard Square,
out-of-town
it
news.
has taken longer to redo the kiosk than it did to rebuild Notre Dame in Paris, which sadly is true.
Yeah.
Having said that, I love Cambridge. I'm not being critical. I love Cambridge. Thank you for your calls and texts, and I'm sure once Josh Kraft joins us, we will do more bike and bus lane talk and other kinds of things.
Okay, after a quick break, it is time for Live Music Friday at the Boston Public Library. This week we're going to talk with the team and listen to some incredible music brought to us by the Boston Lyric Opera and Arts Emerson's new show, Four Seasons. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Once upon a time, the business of gambling was run by the mob.
That was the meat and potatoes.
But then the government wanted in on the action.
It's the same old story. The government sees money to be made, they get involved in it.
The bookies versus the bureaucrats.
Senate, come to order.
Scratch and Win is a new podcast from the creators of The Big Dig. It's about this competition and about the fiercest competitor of them all, the Mass State Lottery. Find Scratch and Win wherever you listen.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Huntington Theater. The Boston Family You Fought cycle continues in The Grove, playing now at the Huntington Calderwood. A young queer daughter of Nigerian immigrants comes into herself. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org. And Bryant University, presenting the 28th Annual Women's Summit. Elevate your journey on March 13th, a day of professional empowerment. More at wsummit.bryant.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan and Jim Browder. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Callie Crossley in the noon hour, the people from the Titanic exhibit, and then the great Myers and Chang from Flower Bakery and Myers and Chang, and the new place, soon to be in Boston Common, will join us for Valentine's Day at 1 o'clock. It's time now for Live Music Friday, care of the Boston Lyric Opera and Arts Emerson. On March 12th through the 16th, they're teaming up for the debut show in a new series called Rising Water, Rising Voices. It's all about using the arts, in this case opera, to address the climate crisis. And a new show called Four Seasons, based off the classic Vivaldi concerto. In a few moments, we'll speak with the people here at the interview desk. That's BLO CEO Bradley Vernatter and Arts Emerson Interim Executive Director Ronee Penoi, as well as Jack Forman, who's an MIT bubble engineer? Okay, it all makes sense in a moment, I'm told. You go to BLO.org or artsemerson.com for information and tickets. First, though, here's Alexis Peart performing the choreographer's aria, accompanied by Ji Young Lee. Welcome. I misspoke, by the way. It's called The Seasons. Vivaldi's work is The Four Seasons. That was fabulous, by the way. Thank you so much.
So, Bradley, let's start with you as CEO of the Boston Lyric Opera. Tell us about this production.
This production is, it's not wrong to call it the Four Seasons.
Oh, it
It's got a
isn't?
lot of music in it from the Four Seasons, but it's technically called The Seasons, and this is a new opera, a new story written by Sarah Rule, but it's really a mashup of a lot of Vivaldi music that's centered around Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. So it's a story of a group of artists who are trying to make great art and experiencing the effects of climate and the environment, disruption and disorder around them.
Oh, very timely, needless to say. and Ronnie, what's your involvement here? Tell us how this whole came together.
Oh, of course. I mean, we at Arts Emerson have been fans of Boston Lyric Operas for some time, and this is really our first official partnership, which makes a lot of sense to me because we both have such deep-seated commitments to climate justice and are really excited about advancing work that advances the conversation around climate, specifically in Boston.
So, Jack, you're not only the bubble guy, but you have maybe the best suit that has ever been worn on our show. That is one fabulous suit.
Oh, thank you.
And
I
you
just
do it beautifully, too.
folded my shirt up weirdly in the closet and pulled it out. It came like this.
So you're not really the bubble guy. Tell us what you do in life, and then tell us your contribution to this work.
So what I do in my main PhD research is developing shape-changing, responsive textiles that can be electronically controlled and can, sleeves that can change length. But through that, I've learned...
Sleeves that can change length?
Yeah, so it's this like a two-way shape memory, new type of liquid crystal elastomer fiber that I could talk about for 20 minutes, but we don't have that much time.
Well, hold on. Is that a question? Does that mean so if you buy a shirt when you're a 12-year-old kid and you get to be a 16-year-old kid, can you wear the shirt forever? Is that
She
what
has
we're talking
three children who are grown, by the way. That's where this is coming
I'm just wondering, a little boy, that maybe get taller.
Exactly. So, the idea behind it is we use, different garments for so many different things. Warmer jackets, shorter shirts, things that look different for different occasions. And, what if you can reduce the amount of textiles that you consume, but they can be multifunctional.
I love it.
Okay, so Marjorie is easily distractible.
Sorry.
Let's get back, if we can, to what are you doing here?
So, for this work, a good friend of mine is Anthony Roth-Costanzo, who's one of the co-creators with Sarah Rule of the show. And he was talking with Mimi Lien, the stage designer, and they really wanted a set that minimized its material consumption, so to not generate all this waste. When you think about what a stage normally is made of, it's made out of these materials that last years. But stages only last, a run of a show. And so when I read through the libretto and all these different weather effects that happened, and I think I was somewhat influenced by washing dishes earlier that day and, playing with the foam as one does. I just thought it had to be bubbles. The whole stage had to be bubbles, which are something that emerge as quickly as they disappear. Right. And it felt like a really natural fit. And so in this show, what I've been developing are new types of bubble effects for the stage. And so that includes reverse snow. So foam that I inflate with helium that gets robotically sliced and floats up into the air. These foam mountains that grow on stage that then disappear as quickly as they came. And these giant meter-sized fog-filled bubbles that get inflated with fog. So they leave this kind of ephemeral trace.
And by the way, it's fairly obvious, but that's to meld within the climate theme of the production, obviously.
Yeah,
yes?
there was something...
Sustainability, etc.
This bubble that we're living in of of being able to ignore it, the delicacy of a bubble related to the climate. It's also just the beauty of it, I think, is very...
Okay.
Marjorie, you go ahead.
Well, can I get back to the opera for a second?
You may.
Because a while ago I was ridiculed because I made a kind of stupid remark about Tom Rush, a guy we've had on the radio a bunch of times. He was
a guy.
Yeah, he's a fantastic.
One of the most famous folk singers of the last 100 years.
And he was, a big star when I was a kid, and I had all his pictures on the wall and stuff like that. But I was talking about how a voice like that, like his, like a folk singer in general, is so different from someone who can do what we just saw sing opera that we're going to hear in a few minutes.
That's not what she said.
The vibrato. Yeah, I did.
She said anybody can be a folk singer,
I think it's
but
a lot
an opera
easier
singer,
to sing,
an opera singer.
And what is the difference? Is it because you hear the vibrato, that's what you call the vibrations of the voice, right? You hear all that in opera singers and the power of the voice. So is it that? Because it's a very different song, or sound.
Everyone has the ability to
They
sing.
do?
Everyone has the ability to sing. And what you hear from an opera singer is using your entire body to produce that sound. So their sound requires every muscle in their body. And these really deep breaths, there's a lot of breath work that's happening with classical singers and opera singers that helps to move air through your whole body and then produce that resonance in their cavities.
So is Bradley right about how you're breathing?
Yeah, it's a lot of breathing.
It's breathing, and it's also sound resonates on different materials differently, right? So if you think about musical theater in the sense of belt, it's hitting your palate differently than an opera, which is going into your head voice more. So it's kind of a continuum.
But everybody can't sing like this. I mean, it's rare to be able to sing like this.
It's a special talent.
It's a special
It's a very
talent.
special
That's
talent.
right.
Speaking of a special time, Marjorie, by the way, I know her pretty well. This is just cover to get back to the extendable sleeves, which is really what she's into. I'm
well,
sorry.
I mean, that is fascinating.
Okay, but getting
That's
back
why
to
we
this.
love MIT.
Let
Who
me
would have
start-
thought we had
I should have
extendable
looked at it.
sleeves?
Okay, Ronnie.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Okay. How old were you when you first liked opera? Tell the truth.
Oh my God. Well, I was in an opera when I was 7.
You were?
Yeah. In Pittsburgh. I was one of the little children's chorus in a production of Carmen.
Well, that ruined my whole point.
Carmen.
How about you,
Sorry.
Brad?
Sorry.
How old were you when you first? I mean, but maybe, like, I've said this to you before. I hated opera till about 20 years ago when I think we went to the BSO to see Andres Nelson's and somebody, and it was like I was so mesmerized. And as we've said a million times, like our great friend Brian O'Donovan used to say, when you see it live as your introduction, it changes everything.
Yep.
And then you can listen to it on tape or whatever. How old were you when you were starting doing an opera thing?
18. Yeah, when I got to college.
That's still
Yeah.
young. How about you, Jack?
About 2 years ago.
Exactly. You're the guy I want to talk to. Are you a convert now or you're not?
So I think I was just kind of confused by the concept for a while. And when I thought of opera, I thought of these very like traditional old operas where people dress up in suits and it's kind of a very elitist thing. And what I've come, and especially through my friendship with Anthony, is just realizing that there's a lot of really innovative, exciting art to be created, and especially just how opera relies really heavily on prior work that's existed for, hundreds of years, but is now able to be recontextualized into something that's very modern and new.
And it makes it much more accessible, which is sort of why I feel, to defend myself, why it took me so long to get into it. Are young people coming to these kinds of things, or is this mostly a middle-aged kind of
Oh no, totally
audience?
young people are coming. And I would say too that a lot of artists these days are reinventing what opera even means. It can be the kind of music that we just heard Alexis perform, but it can also be different kinds of structures, different languages, different musical styles. So the spectrum of work is a lot broader, and I think that's really affecting who's coming in.
What'd you
as well.
sing at 7?
Oh God. I mean, what is Carmen in? French? Yes,
Yeah.
French.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Carmen,
Did you love
Yeah.
doing it at 7?
I did, but I mean, it's very funny. There's a reason why I ended up at Arts Emerson, which is very theater-based and very interdisciplinary. So I love music, but I really love the put together of different artistic styles coming together. So I loved it, but I think I've been a theater kid at heart.
Okay, I want to know, I got you all beat. I listened to Amal the Night Visitors when I was about 3 because my mother was a musician, so we all sang the little parts between the mother and little boy going back and forth. But I think there's so much that was Minani. I think Carlos Minani was at Amal the Night Visitors.
Wow.
Then there's Italian opera, then there's French opera, then there's Madame Butterfly, Puccini's opera. They're all so different. And I think that's the other thing. I mean, some people love like Madame Butterfly, or they love Marriage of Figaro, which is Mozart, or they can't stand Italian opera.
Yeah.
So talk about the differences between them.
Brad?
Well, as Ronnie was saying, opera includes every type of performance discipline and artistic discipline. So it can really be as big as you can imagine, as big as you can dream. And there are these certain styles that we become familiar with, like Puccini has a certain style, Verdi has a certain style. But today, as Ronnie was saying, the spectrum of opera just continues to expand very, very, it's a very wide range. Recently, BLO's commissioned a lot of works, and we recently produced Omar, and we recently produced Eurydice by the Boston area composer Matthew O'Coin.
That's right.
And now we're presenting this new opera, new work that's based on Vivaldi's music from 300 years ago. So there's so much opportunity.
Matthew O'Coin, by the way, who, for those who are readers of the Globe, is the son of Don O'Coin, the critic there, who we had on the show when his first thing was being produced
That's
in
right.
New York when he was 11
That's
or whatever.
right. That's right.
I mean, he is and was an incredible talent.
So-
For people who don't know anything about Arts Emerson, we've had people on
yeah.
before. Fill in a blank or two for people
Totally.
if you
So
will, Ronee.
Arts Emerson, we're about 15 years old. And in all of our theaters, which include the Majestic, the Paramount Center, so you may see the beautiful facades as you drive by. And what we're presenting is interdisciplinary theater and theater from around the world. So it's work that we like to say that art is the provocation and the conversation is the point. So the goal of all of the art we put on stage is to have a conversation about something that's meaningful to us in the city of Boston.
And how about a little bit on the BLO, even though you've been here before? For those who are new to it, fill in a blank.
BLO, I mean, we present, excuse me, sorry.
Want me to answer this, or are you going to handle it? Go ahead.
Similar to what Ronee was describing with Arts Emerson, BLO presents these massive collaborations. Opera is not something that you do on your own. It's something you do together with a lot of people on stage, in the orchestra pit, and in the audience. So it's a big community effort.
So before we hear some more of the opera, Jack Forman, MIT bubble engineer, let's get back to the bubbles for a minute. You talked about the bubbles that are going to be on the stage. They disappear so quickly. Usually, the bubbles most of us think of. So what is that going to look like to people?
Well, hopefully it looks beautiful. But what it will look like are all of these different ways to imagine, soap, everything from foam to just giant bubbles. And so, I can't quite say exactly what it will look like because it's so dependent on the live performance. It's not like projection mapping where you know exactly what it's going to look like. The way that a bubble behaves will depend on, the humidity that day or the air pressure and how the HVAC is flowing. And so I think what's nice about it is that there is this element in the same way that the voice can be a live performance, that the stage is also a live performance.
So will you be constantly recreating the bubbles during the performance?
So I won't be creating the bubbles. I've designed and engineered these machines that can make the bubbles
do it. Okay.
precisely.
So the machines will be recreating the bubbles.
Exactly.
So it'll be constantly in flux.
Yes,
that's pretty
exactly.
neat. That's pretty neat.
It took, a lot of, it's surprisingly hard to get bubbles to behave. They aren't something that are predictable or reliable. And so, the big part of this process for me was just learning to stop trying to make bubbles something that they aren't and accept their unpredictability and learn how to work with that. And that's when you are really able to start making these machines that can work well.
What's your level of anxiety about the bubble situation? Marshall, I feel a little anxiety in there, Jack.
It's every other thought, but actually, as of today, all of the devices are working really beautifully. And now it's just about, getting them on stage and seeing how the actors and director react to them and, being able to be at a place with them where I'm not tweaking them to work, but I'm able to be reprogramming them for artistic ends as opposed to functional ends.
Brad, before we hear a second performance, I introduced you guys by saying this is part of a series, Arts Emerson, Boston Lyric Opera. What is the series and what's to come?
Yeah, Rising Waters, Rising Voices is an initiative that uses the power of storytelling and opera and music to bring awareness to the changing environment around us. There's a lot of, things are changing rapidly around us, flooding and fires, all sorts of things. And we realize that our stage can be a platform to have those conversations and to think about these issues in a way of beauty, through joy, and through hope.
Yeah, and I think for us too,
go ahead.
it's
I'm
also.
sorry, Ronee.
Oh no. I was going to say, I think also for Arts Emerson, our way into the climate conversation is how are frontline communities in Boston affected, and how can we, use this beautiful piece of art to help build connective tissue to the folks that are really doing work in the city.
So it starts March 12th, and I assume, you didn't mention, but I assume in addition to this collaboration, you have lawyers at the ready when Trump bans the production on the 11th because it's about climate. You're ready for that, I assume, Brad?
There's a lot of
yeah, exactly.
Changing rhythms of the climate. There's changing rhythms all around us. Lots of disorder out there, and we're very, very committed to the work that we're doing.
Excellent answer. Who wants to tell us who we're going to hear from and what we're going to hear next? Brad?
Of course, yes. So next we are going to welcome a BLO emerging artist, Zizhou Wang, who is singing the Weatherman aria called If You Feel War Inside.
Here it is. Thank you so much.
You asked for a cosmic weatherman. Well, here I am. I used to be a weatherman, but I got depressed. So I quit to work the land. If weather is a language, then we're not listening. If weather is a language, we're not speaking it or hearing it. I need another way to tell you that the seasons are now completely out of order. If you feel war inside, if you feel war outside, with the weather keeping you up at night, then you must fight. You have a duty to the world. Don't lose heart. Open your eyes. The time is now.
Was the Weatherman's aria performed by baritone Zizhou Wang, accompanied on the piano by...
Trusted, local news.
Builders in New England are bracing for the impact of new tariffs on building materials.
Here for what matters to you.
All of that's going to raise up those prices on those projects, which is going to make developers look at it and say,
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Boston Philharmonic
Doge team at VA.
Making sure that we have the best run facility for efficiency to make sure who? The veteran gets the care they need.
Collins says the cuts won't hurt veterans, despite staff shortages and a backlog of disability claims. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
Vice President J.D. Vance tells the U.S.'s European allies that the biggest threat to their continent is the threat from within. He says censorship of conservative and right-wing views shuts people out from the democratic process. At the Munich security conference today, Vance also raised concerns about immigration.
Of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
This was Vance's first major national security speech, but he quickly dispensed with national security issues like the war in Ukraine, defense spending, and the threats posed by Russia and China in a couple of sentences, launching into a blistering critique of European politics. Ukraine says a Russian drone struck the Chernobyl nuclear power plant today. It hit the radiation shelter protecting a damaged reactor. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports from Kyiv that Russia called Ukraine's accusations a provocation.
The strike caused a fire that Ukrainian fire infrastructure. Chernobyl is the site of the world's worst nuclear accident. An explosion there in 1986 sparked a health emergency across Europe. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
This hour, U.S. stocks are mixed. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 70 points at 44,637. The S&P is up 3 and the Nasdaq is up 33 points. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Everett's former school superintendent lost her job in 2023 over claims that she harassed and bullied employees. Well, now, an independent report shows none of those claims are holding up. GBH's Liz Niesloss has more.
There were roughly a dozen claims against Priya Tahiliani, and Everett's mayor, Carlo Di Maria, had called them serious enough to merit sidelining her. But an independent investigator hired by the school committee found insufficient evidence to support any of them. In one example, a witness told investigators his discrimination claim had nothing to do with Tahiliani. The city had refused to release the report. It was disclosed as part of a pending lawsuit by Tahiliani against the mayor and the school committee. Liz Niesloss, GBH News, 89.7.
Boston's licensing board approved 37 new liquor licenses this week for businesses in the neighborhoods across the city. According to city officials, this latest batch is the single largest addition to Boston's liquor license quota since the end of Prohibition. The areas that receive those liquor licenses include Charlestown, Dorchester, East Boston, Hyde Park, Jamaica Plain, Mattapan, Oak Square, Roslindale, and Roxbury. In 2024, the licensing board approved 225 new liquor licenses throughout the year. In sports, the Celtics and Bruins continue the All-Star breaks, and professional women's hockey, Boston Fleet, is in Toronto this evening. Sunny, windy, low 30s this Valentine's Day, increasing clouds in the teens overnight, and then snow arrives tomorrow afternoon, and we're in for a wintry mess right through Sunday. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Yes, your Brownie. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting, thank you, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com. youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to have two of the guys involved with this fabulous Titanic exhibit that Marjorie and I went to at the castle down the street.
Our hearts will go on, Callie.
And for Valentine's Day, speaking of our hearts go on, our Valentine's couple are Christopher Myers and Joanne Chang, obviously of Flower Bakery and Myers and Chang. And as always on Valentine's Day, I'm guessing that Joanne is going to bring some very special cookies.
I know.
For people here. We shall see. We're joined now at the BPL desk by Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch that Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. She's also co-host for GBH's The Culture Show, airs daily at 2. And on Fridays, I hope you all know, the Weekend Review Show is right here at exactly 2 o'clock at the Boston Public Library. Hello there, Callie.
Hello.
Hello.
Callie Crossley. So nice to see you. I forget if we have sound of Pete Hegseth. Do we have sound of Pete Hegseth? Okay, then I won't bother looking for it.
We don't want to ruin our mood.
Pete Hegseth, as people may know, he is the new Secretary of Defense. That's a really big deal. All those military people and, of course, the Pentagon and the whole 9 yards. He gets out there in his debut and basically talks about what they're going to decide about Ukraine and Russia before they've even gotten to the negotiations. And I thought it was humiliating for the United States of America. He looked so unprepared and ignorant.
And gave away the store.
Well, that's what I said. He revealed what they were going to negotiate before they get to negotiations.
I think it's important in this story to point out that the Senate Armed Services Chair, Roger Wicker, was very upset. So that's where this is coming from. He was mad that he said what they were thinking about, but also that he was questioning whether or not what he said was even possible, which is they will not be able to return to the pre-war borders, and they can't be members of NATO. That's up for discussion. Now, as it turns out, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, I'll learn how to say his name, was repeating something that the guy who he reports to has said before. So his boss has said that. So in that way, it's a little out of school, but it's not, because that's the top guy he reports to, even though he needs to be working with Senate Armed Services Chair Roger Wicker. So from Roger Wicker's perspective, you don't say what we're going to do, shut up already, and let's just play out whatever the negotiations will be. So that's the upsetting part about it. But
here's a great, we criticize Republicans in the Senate all the time for not having the courage to stand up for what they believe in and what they've said their whole careers until Donald Trump is elected. You got to give it to this chair you mentioned, this Wicker from Mississippi. Here's his quote about what Hegseth said. He said he was a rookie mistake, which is pretty bold because it won't please Trump. And he then went on to say, I don't know who wrote the speech. It's the kind of thing Tucker Carlson could have written. And good. Carlson is a fool, is what he... And Tucker Carlson, obviously, is pretty close to the President of the United States. And by the way, the day after Hegseth does what he does, as we were starting the show, the Vice President is there criticizing our allies in Europe at the same time, our allies at the same time that our president is cozying up with the murderous dictator Vladimir Putin. It's a hell of a situation internationally right now.
It is, and I think most people understand that the vice president's job is to sometimes just be the flashpoint, and so we have to assume that if he's out there saying this,
I'm totally with you.
This is coming from the top,
We're talking to Callie Crossley.
So the head honcho of the Manhattan District Attorney's, well, it's not the District Attorney's.
U.S. Attorney's
Office.
Yes.
A 37-year-old prosecutor who is a conservative and has clerked for Justice Scalia, the late Justice Scalia in the United States Supreme Court, so obviously a very smart woman, a conservative. She resigned this week. Tell us about this.
Well, this is very interesting. Really what it comes down to is that Mayor Adams, the mayor of New York, is under investigation for a lot of shady stuff he's done. The investigation was ongoing. She was put in to be interim while they searched for a more permanent person to lead the search to lead the investigation. Because as you know, when the transition happened, all the people who were there, left because, they were not appointed by President Trump. But she personally, just to make this clear, was appointed by President Trump. She is a conservative. We didn't make this up. And all of a sudden, she gets information from the Justice Department that says, you just drop that investigation. Just drop that, let it go. And, obviously she's like, why? And they said, well, he's going to do some helping with us around the immigration plans. He's been very helpful in that way. So that's essentially quid pro quo, which is what she said. They responded, Justice Department people saying, that's a lie. We didn't say that, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. She's, what does she have to gain by doing this? She has, in fact, something to lose. Again, appointed by Trump, again, took her job very seriously. Oh, by the way, she's a graduate of Harvard.
And she's a member of the Federalist Society. And Federalist Society, people may recall, is where a lot of Supreme Court justices have come from. They're chosen from them. Yes. Kavanaugh was chosen from there. Coney Barrett was chosen from there. So she's a very conservative woman.
Her name is Danielle Sassoon.
Danielle Sassoon, that's right. And this story points out that a bunch of other people resigned as well. The number two official at the Justice Department I'm sorry, that's Emi Above, the president's former lawyer. But of these prosecutors, they resigned. A very courageous, I think, thing to do, considering they were asked. I mean, Adams is alleged to have done some terrible things. What is it, $100,000 worth of free airline tickets?
And also the woman, as she's resigning, says we were about to bring further charges against the mayor of New York City for obstructing justice by destroying evidence. And the reason we wanted to talk to you about this today, I worry that because of the infamous flooding the zone, so many things every day, and because it's New York, it doesn't affect us directly. It actually does affect us directly. When the Justice Department announced that and told this U.S. attorney in Southern District of New York they had to dismiss the case, it was not because the case had no merits.
That's right.
They don't even argue that.
Right.
They say he needs more. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. He needs more time. One, to run for re-election, and to work with the president on mass deportation. Yeah. Judge Gertner was here the other day, who I would argue, in addition to being a fabulous federal judge when she was, for the last 50 years, in addition to being a judge, is, I think, one of the 2 or 3 best defense lawyers in the country. She said she has never heard of one case as a judge or a lawyer, not one, in which the prosecutor said, I'm dropping the case for political reasons so that the defendant can work with the president, the governor, the whatever. It's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And this guy worked Trump. He goes to the inauguration, drops his whole schedule for that day. He's been
to Mar-a-Lago.
Exactly. So the answer, and it works.
Yes.
You cozy up, it works. Charges dismissed. It is just unimaginably horrible.
It did say in the story that the governor of New York State, Kathy Hochul, can remove Adams from office for cause, but it doesn't seem like she's necessarily going to do it. She was asked about it on
She had to. He was under investigation.
Yeah. Well, she was unequivocal after these allegations were dropped, so I don't know if anything's going to happen. He might just get away with it. But he's very unpopular in New York for a whole lot of reasons, from everybody understanding.
Yeah, but you know who's leading in the polls for the mayor of New York City, even though he's not declared now?
Who?
A guy who
you're right.
Sexually harassed, what was it, 13 women?
That's right.
The former governor of New York.
That's right.
Andrew Cuomo. If the
Cuomo.
election were today in a landslide, he'd be the next mayor of New York City.
Well, Jim, as we know, being accused of sexual harassment seems to be a golden ticket to higher office these days. You know,
really
I mean,
does.
we got the president, we got Hegseth, we got Bobby Kennedy Jr., we got Cuomo. I mean, it's all the rage.
Exactly.
Can't even.
So when Donald Trump said he's taken over the Kennedy Center, and he said, incredibly, because he has nothing else to do, he's going to become the head of the chair of the board or whatever it is, and everybody's gone, resigned, fired, whatever it is. We read yesterday, sort of interesting, the wife of Robert Kraft has been appointed to the board. I'm curious to know what his son, who's running for mayor, thinks about that Trump connection there. In any case, not him, in all fairness. It's his father's wife. And at the same time...
This is the doctor? This is the
she's
physician?
doctor. And by the way, I read about it, she is one of the most respected physicians in America. But nevertheless, this is obviously a politically charged thing. At the same time, everybody's wondering, well, what exactly is going to happen? Well, we got the first sense of what's going to happen with the cancellation of a play. Tell us about it.
So it's a children's musical that was commissioned by the Kennedy Center. They had premiered the musical in December. Huge hit from audiences and from critics. It's for little kids, but obviously adults can, enjoy it. And they decided this is one of the pieces we'll put on tour. Again, this is aimed at kids. The essence of it is we can all get along, and we can be different, and we can still all get along. That's it.
It's called Finn, by the way, F-I-N-N.
Yes, we should say that. And it's so there are human beings playing sharks. And the plot line is that there's a kid who wants to join the shark guard, but in order to join the shark guard, you have to conform in a certain way. He's not that way. And so he tries to figure out, well, how can I, but I want to be in a group and whatever. And then in the end, there's a lot of talking and singing about, just be you. In fact, one of the biggest songs of the musicals is All You Got to Be Is You. Well, apparently not. Apparently, if you are you get canceled. So they canceled the whole...
Pretty good line there, Callie.
That's right.
He loves, by the way, the story in the, wherever it was, somewhere.
Sparkles.
He loves sparkles and bright colors, which is a no-no, I think.
You can be you as long as you're not sparkled.
But not
I guess
sparkle,
that's the bottom line.
Not bright colors. You can't do that. And all the fish get along. So the sharks and everybody else get along in the play. That's the whole thing. Teaches, some good lessons about sharing and caring, and it got canceled.
A lot of resignations, by the way, of very prominent people. Shonda Rhimes, Ben Folds, Rudder, who was the chair of the board for, I think, roughly a decade. And
you mentioned Bob Kraft's wife being on the Kennedy Center board now, and of course, Kraft spent $1 million, I think, on the Trump inauguration and all.
This one?
I'm not sure. I think it was the first one. I'm not sure.
I think
I'm
it was
not
the last
sure,
one,
but at one of the inaugurations. And how do you think that a Trump association is going to factor into the mayor's race with Kraft, his son, in Boston?
Who has said, by the way, that he has nothing to do with Trump, and he voted for Kamala Harris, but still a legit question, I think.
I really hadn't thought about it until you just brought it up.
Yeah.
Perhaps, but I so few people know Josh Kraft at this point.
Yeah.
I think he has to spend a lot of time just making himself known to people. So maybe it's within his wherewithal to sort of shape that, and maybe he has to address it.
Of course, a lot of families are split are split on this issue. We've had many people talk about how husbands and wives have broken up over their political
You think
fights.
the Vance family is split, actually, even though they don't show it publicly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we know, one of Elon Musk's 19-year-olds, I think this kid was 25 actually, so he's not a kid, said we should normalize Indian hate.
Yes.
And of course, Vance's wife is Indian.
Right.
And he's got children that are Indian Americans. But
more to the point, he defended. That's the point.
He defended this 25-year-old, called him a kid, which I don't think you are at 25, although I make that mistake of calling young people kids all the time. But I can't imagine she thought that was good. And do you remember when they were in the cathedral listening to Reverend Buddy asking for mercy? And Vance kept nudging his wife and looking and trying to talk to her, and she just ignored him and
didn't
looked straight
respond at all.
at the bishop.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There could be problems in paradise there, Callie.
Yeah, I don't know.
You
I
don't
don't
know?
think so.
You don't think
I don't
so?
think you get on that train and whether all that, campaigning and all of that, having people all in your business and whatever. And remember, early on, she had to address the cat lady comment, and she did so quite forcefully.
Oh, I forget that.
Oh, yes. No.
Tell us.
Well, he was out there talking about single women like Taylor Swift, are all pathetic cat ladies, and we have the only people that should be in office or should be allowed to vote are parents.
But the wife was on board with that?
She defended his comments.
Wow, okay.
About cat ladies.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, though, no one knows on either way. I mean, do you think when Hillary Clinton did the 60 Minutes thing, she felt like she expressed? Do you think one woman, is it the Bob Woodward book that says on the night that Trump won the election the first time, Pence turns to his wife and says something positive about the fact that now won, and she turns to him and says, "You got what you wanted," something like, "Stop talking to me," or some such. But that was not a public comment, obviously.
No, but as far as I'm concerned, Mrs. Pence's public facing at the Carter funeral said it all.
Yeah. Well, I think the non-public facing of Michelle Obama also said it all. We're talking to Callie Crossley.
So, Callie, this has been a full-fledged assault across the country on African Americans, women, gay people, trans people, and all that kind of stuff. So, Ayanna Pressley, the congresswoman here in Boston, is reintroducing this legislation to bring up another bill on reparations. It's, needless to say, a tough time for this. What do you think the strategy is?
I think the strategy is that you just keep pushing. I've asked her, and I've heard you all ask Congressperson Ayanna Pressley, the obstacles are huge.
Yeah.
Why pick these mountains? Maybe you have a little mountain over here you can deal with, but how do you keep going at the big mountains? And she is undeterred.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm supposed to be, if I'm in this position, then I'm supposed to do my job. And my job is to continue to hold up certain kinds of principles or to remind people they should be. So I got to give her, big props, because it's not that not introducing it would somehow make her a sellout. I mean, it's just one of those things. She could do other things that along the lines. But the fact that she stood up along with also Cory Booker and said, and some others, by the way, I'm not naming all of them, said, listen, this is history. This is American history. There are documents and facts that ought to be part of what we understand about our country and how we've gotten to where we are. And it's not enough. It's not okay to just sweep it under the rug. I don't care who's in charge. And I am reminded that the kind of work that the commission, which is what really this bill is about, setting up a commission to study the impact of the lack of reparations and what African Americans suffered, the impact of being enslaved for all those years. That is the work, some of the work that's being done by the folks over at Harvard, some of the ones that just got laid off or fired. So, there's gathering of the information happening in many ways around the country, and this sort of would have coalesced this in an important and significant way.
I want to echo what you said once. By the way, Alex from Lowell says, Marty, you'll feel better. If the guy calls himself Big Balls, you can call him a kid. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Well, Big Balls is only 19, as we know. So
this one's 25.
I guess you could say he's still a teenager.
Can I just say, if Ayanna Pressley did nothing but file things that have no chance, I'd say this is a waste of your time. She's a very active member of Congress on a lot of things, and I think it's important to keep this alive. This bill was first filed by John Conyers, and it's been filed by a congressperson, him until he left, every successive Congress. And I think it's really important for those who have lost hope on a lot of things to say, we're still keeping our eye on the prize at the same time that we're doing what we have to do to protect people's basic rights here.
I mean, I think it's always a tough thing to do at any time, to stand up to your convictions when there's any kind of pushback.
Totally agree.
And now we're talking about a lot of pushback from many corners, and to really stand up for your convictions and to say, oh no, you're not going to, I'm here, I have a vote, I have some leadership, and I'm going to, use that. And we're going to hear about it. If we don't hear about it in any other way that I introduce this legislation and talk about it, so be it.
We should remind people, too, you may not remember this guy, Joe Biden, but Biden, I think, was the first presidential candidate, if I remember correctly, who ever endorsed a commission to look at reparations.
Well, we've talked about this a million times before.
Ago.
I think there's a tremendous, people don't know about the systemic racism. People don't know about, these by banks, the redlining, not going to give mortgages to African Americans or to give them crummy mortgages to African Americans. I was very upset before when Henry Santoro talked about Portuguese people from the Azores getting shipped down to New Bedford, because I grew up in Fall River, which was full of Portuguese immigrants from St. Michael's and the Azores. Nobody was lining up against these Portuguese people to say we're systematically going to prevent them from or give them crummy mortgages. I think people just don't know, as we said a million times, until we talked about a lot of these things after George Floyd. A lot of people, including people from Tulsa, didn't know about the massacre, the fire of Black Wall Street there. There's huge ignorance, and I think when people understand it, if you're fair-minded, you might come away with a different perspective.
I always like to use the one that my father was very angry about. And
the GI Bill.
The GI
That's
Bill.
right.
The GI Bill.
Explain.
So the guy that whose name I've forgotten, who originally introduced the GI Bill, pushed and pushed and pushed. Believe it or not, it was not something that was supported. But he finally got to the point where it was supported and he was going to push it through, and then it became clear to him that meant all veterans. That meant also Black veterans. And then he tried to take the bill back. He literally worked against his own bill to take it back. So one of the compromises or whatever was to put some limitations and some restrictions around what Black veterans could use of the GI benefits. And my father was always bitter, he was not a bitter person, about the fact that he did not have the access to the amount and level of mortgage that would have afforded us a whole other lifestyle had he been able to do that, because he did the other thing. He went to school and all of that. His poor guy from Mississippi, grew up on a farm. And so this would have been life-changing, as it was for many white veterans.
And do you think people know that?
No,
I don't think people know that either.
Can I recommend some reading? We had them. We either had them on the show here or I had them on Greater Boston. I can't remember. Cornell Brooks, who's I think now at Harvard, former president of the NAACP, and Linda Blimes, I think is how you pronounce it, co-wrote. She's also at Harvard. Co-wrote a wonderful op-ed in the Globe maybe 5 years ago about this very issue, about the GI Bill. That's one. And two, we should also say, and Marjorie usually takes the lead on this, people don't understand what reparations, forget why they make sense or don't in the minds of some, but what they would mean. And What is Owed, a podcast that our colleague Soraya Wintersmith has done here. I think it's 7 parts, did a really good job. Not only talking about the process, but talking about, we had the woman on who's in charge of the thing that's now getting sued, of course, in Evanston, Illinois, and I believe what they're doing is reparations, after doing a lot of research, is $20,000 down payment assistance for people, because housing, as we've learned in Boston, is the greatest source of wealth inequities in communities like ours in Evanston, Illinois, and that sort of thing.
Passed overwhelmingly. She does a great piece about Evanston in the whole series. It's very well done, and a lot of stories around Boston, too, so you can really have a sense of how what happened here in Boston and elsewhere in the country.
Okay, you can choose or you can do both. What are you doing on Sunday night? And if you want, you can tell us what you're tease of what you're doing.
She's not going to tell us. She never does.
She might. I feel she's in a good mood today.
She's close to the
What's
best.
happening anytime? 2 o'clock today, Sunday night, whatever.
Well, on Under the Radar, we are. I'm having my Latinx roundtable, and we're tackling a bunch of immigration stories, including the fact that CBS News has just confirmed that low-risk migrants are in the group of people being
Yes, they are.
sent to Guantanamo Bay. That was supposed to be hardened criminals, but these nonviolent, undocumented migrants are being sent there. And, this is documented by official paperwork and everything. They did all the work that they're supposed to. So that's one thing. And then there's a number of other immigration and Trump/immigration stories that we're tackling and taking a look at. Also taking a look at something that I find totally puzzling. Why take down the Spanish language website at the White House? Help me with that. You've just bragged that you are able to attract all these new Latinos. Help me with why.
That's a great question.
And yes, I understand it's not, in the scheme of things, it's not a huge deal, but really? And we're also we're trying to, you gotta have some positivity, talking about the robust relationship with Latinos and football and how that looks this year after the Super Bowl and blah, blah, blah. And the second half of the show is the second chapter in the 9 cycle plays written by Infonisa Udafia, which is a great event going on around Boston for the next 2 years. All of her plays will be produced consecutively. This is the second one. People that saw the first one were blown away. This one is equally good.
Okay, as always, telling us nothing about the culture show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
We do know that it's at 2 o'clock, and it's right here
And
at the
I'm
Boston
here.
Public Library.
Okay.
Good to see you, Callie. Thanks.
Speaking of GBH's Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley Sundays. You can see it 89.7 at 6 o'clock. That's, of course, on GBH. You can also hear Callie's commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And Callie, as we just mentioned, is co-host of GBH's Culture Show, which she keeps says nothing about in advance. But you got to tune in at 2 o'clock live today for the Week in Review edition, and it takes place right here at the Boston Public Library. Okay, after a quick break, we are going to talk to the team behind the Titanic exhibit, which is right here in the Back Bay, the Artifact exhibition, and also a little side venture you can take to the Marriott Hotel.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Boston Philharmonic with conductor Benjamin Zander, performing Strauss's 4 Last Songs and Mahler's 4th Symphony with soprano Claire Booth at Symphony Hall, Boston, February 16th at 3. Tickets at bostonphil.org. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering dynamic short programs tailored for mid-career professionals looking to build expertise in innovation, leadership, and technology. Details at executive.mit.edu. And the Worcester Art Museum, presenting Flora in Winter, with artworks reimagined and stunning floral arrangements all throughout the museum. February 27th through March 2nd. Tickets available at the door. worcesterart.org. And Explo, from comedy to veterinary science, Explo's summer program helps middle schoolers find their spark. Day and overnight options at explo.org/summer. Priority deadline February 15th.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, live from the Boston Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As I said, right after the 1 o'clock news, our Valentine's Day segment with Christopher Myers and Joanne Chang from Flower Bakery, and Myers and Chang, they're right there, by the way. No longer do you need to pay millions of dollars for a trip in a questionably secure underwater submersible for a chance to see real artifacts from the legendary Titanic shipwreck. Over at the castle, right down the street here, now through Memorial Day. Is it Memorial Day? Yep, okay. Titanic, the Experience, a chance to see real and recreative pieces retrieved from the RMS Titanic. Margie and I went the last couple weeks. It is spectacular. And if seeing the exhibit only whets your appetite for more, over at the Boston Marriott through the 15th of March, the Titanic Presidential Suite Experience. We were not invited to that, where you can stay in a recreation of the suites on the ship pre-iceberg, of course. To get Marjorie in the mood, here's some sound from 2 classic Titanic-themed movies, A Night to Remember, which I think was 1950-something, during the sinking on the ship, and a clip from the movie Titanic, when, this is Marjorie's thing, when Jack and Rose are struggling.
They're struggling
with that infamous door.
That's
Here
right.
it is.
Oh, what the hell are we waiting for? Those people are drowning. This boat isn't full. We can go in and pick some of them up.
Are you mad? If we get among that lot, they'll swamp the boat. They'll capsize us.
You can't just sit here and do nothing. Come on, girls. Row.
Never let go.
I will never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
Oh, my. We're here with Joe Gold, principal of the Gold Group, on behalf of Titanic the Experience. And John Wilmoth is the GM, general manager of the Boston Marriott. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. I think it'll be fun.
Okay. Well, before this fun is over, we're going to find out what you think about whether Kate Winslet had moved 6 inches over and let Leonardo DiCaprio on the chair, or the doors. They were floating around in the North Atlantic. They both could have survived instead of just one of them. But anyway, before that, tell us what people are going to see if they go down to the castle.
Well, it's great. The exhibit has 250 artifacts that were recovered from the ocean floor. Nothing is taken off the wreck itself. So over the last, I think it was since 1992, they've been bringing up artifacts. So far, 5,500 have been recovered. So when they come in, they're handed a boarding pass, which I'm sure you were handed a boarding pass.
Yes.
And it tells you a bit of a history of the person. It says if they're first class or second class or third class, and they go through the exhibition, and we want the person to feel like they were a passenger on the ship. So they see everything from the design and manufacture of the ship to a recreation of the grand staircase, and many of the artifacts that came out of first class, third class, and as they proceed through, they experience the iceberg and a number of other things. Yeah.
Which is really cool. The boarding pass thing was really cool. I got this.
Can you do me, Jamie? My boarding pass is in my left-hand jacket pocket. I forgot. Do you mind
I remember
grabbing
my boarding
it?
pass was an
Thank
Indian
you. Go
woman
ahead.
and her 2 children, and
Sorry.
they were in third class, and I figured they were going to die because they were in third class, but they didn't. They survived. My daughter got the Strausses. Tell us about the Strausses.
So
it's a great
funny.
story.
So the Strausses were the founders of Macy's.
Yes.
And they were on the ship, and the ship started to go down, and like normal, it would be women and children first, but Isidore was going to, face death, and Ida, the wife, said, "I go where you go." So it's really a love story. They both perished with the ship. Coincidentally, this past Saturday, their grandson visited the experience.
Oh my gosh.
And unfortunately, I wasn't there, but he really enjoyed it. He told us and got a good insight as to what his grandparents had seen.
Yeah, it is an incredible love story, especially for Valentine's Day.
Can you get a shot of this, or is it too small?
Yeah, there's the boarding pass.
This is the boarding pass of an individual on the far side. Is that too small? Probably. Well,
while you're looking at that, meanwhile, John, what's with the Marriott Hotel?
So we've been able to draw inspiration from everything Joe's been doing. With the hotel was built in 1982, and the architecture of the hotel looks like a cruise ship.
It actually does.
Heading
it
out
does.
to port.
Yeah.
So we kind of drew that inspiration and took our presidential suite, which gives you that king of the world moment with the balcony at the end. And thanks to Joe, I have to give a shout out to Jason Volk from the Greater Boston Vintage Society, who helped us design the presidential suite to kind of create a new, unique experience.
Of what you would have, the surroundings if you were in first class.
Correct. So not only are you immersed in the living room and the dining room, we've recreated a dining moment. So the executive chef has recreated the first class dinner menu.
Which you can see at the exhibit, the first class, second class, third class.
Right.
Everybody ate pretty well on the Titanic. Even third class people were getting really good food.
They certainly did, yeah.
Yeah. And when you, just to give people...
Wait, before you leave this, first class then cost, how much was it? I remember. How much?
$57,000 in today's...
57. And how much was it in money from that time?
I think $1,700.
17. Could be, before we talk more about the exhibit, and by the way, the recreations are fabulous, but the real things are so chilling and haunting. They are just, it's unbelievable. Can you give a little history for people about the first discoveries when this one company, I guess, was granted the rights? I'm not sure who did grant the rights. You can tell us. And what that's been that led to this.
Sure. It was granted by the international courts, and it was given to a company called RMS Titanic. So they're the ones that brought up the 5,500 different artifacts.
And they have an exclusive right.
They have an exclusive right. So I've seen a couple of other exhibits on Titanic, but they don't have the real artifacts in them.
Which is what makes, I have to tell you, my daughter wanted to go to this because she's watched the movie 19 million times. I was surprised at the quality of it. You see the china, first class china, the second class china. You see personal jewelry of people.
You mean by how intact it is in terms of quality?
Well, yes,
right?
and it's the real thing you're looking at, which is incredible. You also had that hallway, the first class hallway, that gives you a real sense of what you saw when you were going to your room, and a replica of both the first and the third class bedrooms. Tell us about those.
So it gives people an opportunity to see what first class was like back then, but in front of the first class cabin there are a lot of artifacts, and one artifact that sort of I'd like a lot, besides somebody had the same eyeglasses that I wear, there's a toilet from third class.
Yes,
and they
that's
said
right.
that most people who were in third class had never used a toilet in their entire life. And we have one in the exhibition. But there's china, there's flatware, there's silverware, there's a number of other things within the exhibit. And when you remarked on how amazing it is that we have these artifacts, we read every review, and some people have said, well, it's faded. And I thought to myself, how would you look after 100 years under the bottom of the ocean?
It's faded. Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
You know what the response to that is? Bunch of a-holes. That's what you should be saying. Now, can I stay with you just for a second? My understanding is the rules of engagement for, what's the name of the company that has the
RMS Titanic.
RMS Titanic, is they can't take anything from the ship itself, right?
That's correct.
They can only take what is described as the term of art debris, meaning things that when it was sinking, bounced off or exploded off.
It cut in half.
Is that true?
That's
Am I
exactly right.
about
So
that?
when the ship broke apart, items fell out of the ship. And they can only remove it from the debris field. They cannot take anything off the ship out of respect to, because for lack of a better term, it's a graveyard.
So why do you care about this other than the fact you work at the Marriott? You have to care about it, I assume. But what's your deal?
One of the real full circle moments for us, so many know John Jacob Astor IV.
Yes.
He actually founded the St. Regis Hotel, and at the time was thought to be the most innovative hotel. St. Regis now falls underneath our Marriott Hotel brands. And so it's kind of a cool full circle moment for us. And just his spirit of innovation, that's kind of what prompted us to fuel into this.
Was it Astor or Guggenheim that said, gentlemen, let's get our top hat and tails and have a brandy and go down with the ship? And
I believe it was Guggenheim.
Guggenheim. These are some of the richest people in America. But I wonder, so the exhibit is one thing down at the castle, but you can go to the Marriott and stay in this suite, this Titanic arranged suite. So, you don't have to tell us their names, but what sort of people are doing that? I mean, that's a big expense.
Tell us their names. Go ahead.
It's Jim and Margaret pretty soon.
That's
Let
right.
me tell you, we're ready.
So we've got a family coming in soon from Chicago. They have a 10-year-old son that is just a diehard fan of the Titanic and everything that it stands for, so much that this family dressed up as the Titanic for Halloween.
Wait, as the boat?
I didn't get all the details. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to getting
Someone was the bow, someone was the stern.
Probably.
Someone was the steam.
We have someone kind of tying into today. It's Valentine's Day. I have that suite reserved, and I'm not going to say when or by whom, but someone's going to do a very romantic gesture out of that suite. So I'm going to help pull that surprise through.
How much are we talking about here?
So typically, our guest rooms range anywhere from $300 to $500. The presidential suite usually retails for another $2,000 on top of that. We've discounted that down to a $600 premium just to be able to give people a little more access to it.
Yeah. Do you think it's the Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio movie that is drawing all these people? I mean, the Clifton Webb movie was a long time ago, the original.
I think it's just in general, it's in the conversation every day. Somebody will refer to a Titanic moment.
That's true.
And I think last year with the tragedy that happened, or maybe it was 2 years ago, that brought a lot of interest to Titanic. But it was about 2 or 3 months before we opened here in Boston that a cruise ship struck an iceberg, and I thought to myself, I could not have arranged that better. It's just everything's sort of going our way.
By the way, first, one of the things, the timeline things are also chilling, sort of minute by minute as you're going through what's happening. I have to say, I told Margaret, I want to be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to be into this. And you really, once you're in there, you really get grabbed. It's pretty incredible. And then when you touch the iceberg, the block of ice you have there, that's the temperature of the water, am I right at that time?
28 degrees.
28
Boy,
degrees.
does that make it real in the most horrible kind of way for you?
Now, did you notice all the handprints in that ice?
Yes.
Imagine how long a guest has to stand there to make that imprint. It's the craziest thing.
You know what else I thought was incredible, too? If you've seen the movie or read any of the books about the Titanic, you know that there were men down in the boiler room, which you've recreated. And that's particularly chilling because of what happened in that boiler room. Explain that.
I would have to think that all those people that we have pictures of and everybody who worked there probably perished. But when I've been told that the reason the ship sank was it could sustain 4 compartments filled with water, but unfortunately it took on 6, and that brought the ship down.
And then the doors between the waterproof rooms closed, trapping the people that were shoving the coal, was it coal?
Right, the coal.
Into
Into
those
the boilers,
rooms.
right.
And that's another thing that you list at the end. I don't know if we mentioned this. At the end, you find out if the people whose names were on the boarding pass survived or didn't survive. But you also list all the passengers from first class, second class, third class.
Right.
And I kind of thought, class being what it is, that most of the third class people perished, but that's not true.
No, a lot of the people in third class and second class perished. It's interesting if it's first class. You mentioned the Strausses.
Yes.
And I think to myself, if I were on the ship, I'm embarrassed to say, but I think I would have been George Costanza, and I would have pushed the people out of the way and been the first off the ship.
Yeah, but
you know what's also haunting? Speaking of haunting, the whole thing was haunting to me in a good way. I had forgotten because I'm not as obsessed with the movie. I'm very interested in the topic, but not. Marjorie is insane about the door.
Well, the movie.
Okay, fine.
The acting at the beginning is a little weak.
Okay,
I must say.
The 2.5 hour sinking, I had forgotten. I mean, that is the excruciating. I mean, I think I had forgotten enough that I convinced myself it sunk fairly quickly. It was 2.5 hours.
It was 2.5 hours, and imagine how long that 2.5 hours was. It probably did not go quick.
And is obviously the most famous thing that a lot of young people remember is the band playing. Is that apocryphal? Is that real?
It's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. Should we play a little bit of the song? I think we should.
Well, for you, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't think they're
This
interested.
is a Celine Dion song that, of course, everybody associates with the Titanic. Here's My Heart Will Go On.
Oh, there's more to it?
Every night in my dreams,
Okay.
I see you. I feel you.
Okay. Really? I mean, really? Okay.
That is Kate Winslet singing to Leonardo DiCaprio, which brings us to the door issue, which we have to resolve before we go here. There's been massive studies. James Cameron, the director, and everybody studies about at the end of the movie, she's on the door, Kate Winslet, and on the door in the water.
Oh, there it is.
That's
we
right.
have the shot. Can the audience
That's
see
right.
this? And it's streaming on youtube.com/GBH.
Where's Leo? Is he already drowned?
He's gone.
He's gone.
No, actually, is he on?
Oh, there he is.
He's under there.
He's on the end.
Yeah,
he's
he
up
is.
to his
Is,
chest
yeah.
in the water.
Okay.
Now, why couldn't she have moved over?
Oh, there he is.
And let him on the door, and then we would have had the two of them survive.
Come on, Joe, get with it here.
What
This
do you
is
think?
big to
I
Marjorie.
got to tell you, I haven't seen the movie since it came out. So.
This is
It's
a
been a
big
long
question
time.
in scientific circles.
How about it, John? Do you have anything to say about this? Apparently not.
We're not sinking at the Long Wharf.
That's a very good response. By the way, on another note, and we'll get back to the Titanic in a second, do you wear a bow tie all the time?
Always.
Always. And are you insecure about that at all? Or
Not
you're
at
not
all.
because you wear it all the time?
All the time.
So why do you wear a bow? I love it, by the way. I don't have the courage to do it, but why do you wear a bow tie?
In another life, I used to be in live entertainment, and before I'd walk into the room, people they'd have conjure up what I might look like.
Yeah.
So I wore this to stand out.
Oh, wow. And what kind of live entertainment were
I
you?
worked for Ringling Brothers Bar and Bailey Circus.
What were you?
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
What were you?
I was a promoter.
Wow. There you
So I was
go.
on the road for 20 years.
Is that true?
Yeah.
So you ran away to join the...
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
From the circus to the Titanic. Let's get back to the
We're
Titanic.
talking to
I have
Joe
a few more
Gold, by the way.
questions.
That was the voice of Joe Gold, principal of the Gold Group on behalf of Titanic The Experience. John Wilmoth is the GM of the Boston Marriott, where this presidential suite thing is happening.
One of the little poignant details I learned at the exhibit was that the captain of the Titanic was retiring, but because it was the maiden voyage, and it was White Lines. What's the name of the cruise ship?
White Line.
Yeah, they hired
White
him back.
Star. White Star.
They hired him back for this last ride.
You have to think that maybe they made a mistake.
Yeah.
Because they say the ship was traveling at 21 knots through a ice field, which is just ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean, why would they be going so fast? To make up time? I mean, if they were a day late, it wouldn't be a big deal.
Well, talk about that, too, because it was supposed to be unsinkable, made in Belfast, sailed to England, then came across the Atlantic. A lot of reforms to those big ships were made after the Titanic went down, right?
Sure. The most important thing is lifeboats. There were not enough lifeboats on the ship, enough capacity to take everybody off the ship. And when my understanding is when it started to go down, people didn't believe it was going down, so they didn't get in the lifeboats, and a number of lifeboats were recovered with 10 people, 15 people, where each lifeboat had the capacity of 68. And within the exhibition on the floor, we project the size of the lifeboat, and there's a photograph of the Carpathia, which was one of the rescue ships, next to it, and the lifeboat is half empty.
Yeah, and that was, it became a musical, The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Mm-hmm.
She's a character in both these movies. She was some poor young thing that wound up marrying a rich guy and made a lot of money. It was a real character and featured in both the movies. But she did, at least according to legend, say, let's go back and get these people that are screaming in the water as they're freezing to death. What happened there?
But I think, hypothermia can overcome the body in about 10, 15 minutes. So
Yes.
if you're just in that water, you're not going to survive.
Right.
And-
But there was a fear, too, by the people that worked for the Titanic that the lifeboats that were half empty would be overrun by
Right.
people that were drowning.
And as well as the ones that were full, they'd be overrun,
That's right.
which is really too bad. But I think a lot of maritime rules changed after that. And I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship, but you have the muster drill when you first get
Yes,
on.
you do.
And the first time I went, I thought it was a joke. And no, it all emanates from the tragedy of the Titanic.
By the way, I'd rather be waterboarded than go on a cruise ship, but that has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with the Titanic. Almost 1,500 people died, and
Correct.
roughly 700
No,
survived.
1,200 survived.
1,200 survived. When did the last survivor die?
I think it was only about 10 years ago.
She was in the movie with Kate and Leo. Didn't
Okay,
you see it?
Marjorie. Okay, fine. We really don't care.
She was. I think she was
No, it
102.
doesn't- nobody cares.
And she had that big necklace on, which
Okay,
of course was
fine.
made up for the movie.
Yeah.
There was no.
No,
big
no, I was able to recover that. And
Really? That's your retirement fund.
So, two things before you go. Is there anything we're missing that you think huge in this exhibit that, because Marjorie can only talk about the movie, where you didn't mention here? Is there something that really knocks people's socks off that we're ignoring?
I
the
think
crane?
I think as you get towards the end of the exhibition, I don't know if you recall. Well, the staircase it's
fab.
remarkable.
That is.
It's
and
remarkable.
people
With
take their picture on
You've
it.
got the dome.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, just like it looked on the ship.
Right, but at the very end, there are 3 areas where a photograph on the wall shows what it looked like on the bottom of the ocean,
Yes.
and then we've recreated it with the actual artifacts that are right in front of them. And to me, that's absolutely remarkable.
And you also talk about the multiple warnings that they received that night.
Right.
That's a very moving thing. And you can touch the hull.
You can touch
The actual
a
boat,
piece of the
Jim.
hull, right?
Okay, we only have a minute. What'd you bring us?
So we brought you each. It's not a smug mug.
Oh,
But we each brought you a.
You are A-okay with us, my friend.
There you go.
Go ahead. What'd you bring?
So it's filled with candy because of Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. Thank you very much,
And John, what's your deal? What'd you bring?
So this is one of the amenities that you get when
Oh,
you stay
my
in the presidential
God.
suite.
What is it?
They're macarons that have been imprinted with the image of the Titanic.
That's because we're never going to get to stay there. You're sort of trying to...
Never say never, John.
Exactly. Gentlemen, the exhibit is really spectacular. People should do it through Memorial Day. Thanks so much for...
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
And get your tickets well in advance because it sells out in the weekends very quickly. So thank you very much, both of you, for coming in. We've been speaking with Joe Gold of the Gold Group, the Boston Marriott General Manager, John Wilmoth as well. The Titanic, the Artifact Experience runs now through Memorial Day. If you want to experience the Titanic Presidential Suite, maybe get dressed up in period outfits, that's going to be available through the 15th of March, so not that much longer. Titanicboston.us for tickets. That's Titanicboston.us for tickets and info. And the Marriott Hotel, of course, is right here on the water in Boston. Thank you again. After
Thanks,
a quick
John.
break, to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, we're going to go to two more things. Two more things is next. Our new little bit, that's next on Boston Public Radio.
Why is college tuition so high? Why are there so many fees? And why won't my credits transfer? If you've ever had any of these questions, we're answering them on our podcast, College Uncovered. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Supermicro and NVIDIA, accelerating AI with a wide range of AI servers and the NVIDIA AI Enterprise Software Platform. Supermicro is committed to driving AI infrastructure breakthroughs with rack-scale innovations. And Bryant University, presenting the 28th Annual Women's Summit. Elevate your journey on March 13th, a day of professional empowerment. More at wsummit.bryant.edu. And American Repertory Theater, presenting The Odyssey. From the Cyclops to the Sirens, audiences can experience this cultural touchstone's mythical adventures like never before. Now playing through March 16th. amrep.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Regan, live from the Boston Public Library. I just laugh when Marjorie claps. I'm sorry. And streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Right before the 1 o'clock news, it is time for a relatively new segment, Two More Things. Marjorie, what's your one more thing?
Well, I opened up the Boston Globe this morning, and who did I see in there but our former producer, Matt Shearer. He's a big star now at BZ Radio. He's got 83,000 followers on Instagram and north of 20,000 on BZ Radio on TikTok, and we think it has a lot to do with Matt Shearer, who used to be our producer. He's a wonderful kid. He's not a kid. He's 37 years old now, so he's not a kid. But, you know, when he worked for us, I thought he looked like Tom Brady in high school. He's 37. He still looks like Tom Brady in high school.
He's a good-looking guy.
If your daughter came home with Matt Shearer, you'd be very happy. He's adorable.
Good.
He's already married, though, with a couple of kids, so he's not available. Anyway, he's really clever. He's really smart.
Really cute, too. You forgot to say that.
He's really cute. I said that. Tom Brady in high school.
Yep.
And he created the blooper reel that
at our old show.
Yeah, this is because Margie made so many mistakes. You wouldn't be surprised. I'm better now.
This is real, by the way.
That every week we had like these things that went on for a whole minute of all the mistakes I made from the week. So in honor of Matt Shearer, whom I congratulate tremendously with his great work at BZ Radio, here's a blooper reel from when Jim and I used to work at 96.9 FM Talk, created by Matt Shearer. Parents were clearly drunk, don't you think, Jim? Jim? Oops.
Jim?
You're not Dean.
Jim?
You're not Dean either.
Thanks.
You're Jim.
Living up to our expectations. Bob, thanks for the call.
That was a great call. Bob, Bob's gone now.
Bob is the caller.
Jim, here's one for you, Jew being...
Juby?
Jew. Jim.
Excuse me,
Jewish.
Here's one for Jew?
That's the problem, Jim. We did not attend. Never
My name is not Dick. Dick is the other guy. Now, thank you very much.
Romney, Jim Browdy over here. Whoops, I almost called Jim
That's
Romney.
close. That's in next
Jim
week.
Browdy and Matt.
I'm Jim.
We're just getting fatter and fatter and dumber, Liz. Whoops, not Liz.
Wait a second. Do we get that, by the way?
Really,
that was a pun, by the way.
I noticed that, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill, whoops, Jim.
I'm Jim.
That was very
Bill's
clever.
the other guy. He'll be here tomorrow.
Well, what's the percentage, Bill? Bill, whoops, you're Jim.
Bill, can you come in for a second?
Billy!
Day 2 of morning post Super Bowl disaster. I am Jim Browdy. I'm not Jim Browdy, actually. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. The unconditional love thing, Jim. That's the deal.
John will be in a couple of minutes.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Jim, whatever.
That was one show, by the way.
How talented was Matt Shearer? That's how I got my job, Jim.
Well, he had a lot to work with, let me just tell you. He really did. Okay, congratulations to Matt. He's doing wonderful work over there. Great piece in the Globe. So I want to, you're actually involved in my one more thing today, too.
Okay.
We started a new feature called How Do You Two Know Each Other, which we're actually continuing in about 10 minutes with the O'Brien brothers. One is the coach of BC Eagles football.
Right.
One is a big developer, HYM, in town. And one who surprised the other two brothers is in the energy industry. He's a former state senator. And when I introduced him on the show, he mentioned that when he left the state Senate, one Marjorie Egan, then a columnist at the Herald, wrote about his departure. Here's John O'Brien yesterday on our show.
Well, first of all, Marjorie Egan, I'm still in therapy because you wrote the revolving door article on me when I resigned.
I did?
She doesn't even remember, John.
We have long memories. Long memories.
What did it say?
Wow.
No, it's fine, Marjorie. I'm over it. It was 1998, and I'll be okay.
I'll have to go look that up. I remember.
No,
I can't imagine. I criticized you.
Okay.
No, my therapist is really like, it's going to be fine.
Okay, it was only 25 years ago. Speaking of 34 years ago, Marjorie wrote a column about me 34 years ago. I've mentioned this before.
A million times.
And my opponent in a ballot question, which I won in a landslide. The headline was Question 3 is a taxing one for Bay State voters. And she treated me as dismissively as she treated the departing Senator John O'Brien. She says Jim Browdy claims the support of elusive real-life people. She disparages a rap song we had. Who wrote the rap song?
Did you write the rap song?
Jill Stein wrote the rap song.
Oh, my God.
He drives the Save the Whales Volvo. I didn't even have a Volvo.
You got one about a year later.
Yeah, but I didn't have one then.
Inspired by
Okay,
my
fine.
column.
She said I wore whale pants,
You did.
which I have never worn. And listen to this line.
Birkenstocks.
Excuse me. There's Gentleman Jim. So smooth, so eloquent, exuding noblesse oblige in his rumpled blazers like the heartthrob of freshman girls in Econ
I called you
101.
a heartthrob, okay?
Can I tell you what I'm
Most
doing
people be
tomorrow?
flattered by
I am
that.
going to John O'Brien's therapist because of this. By the way, I won the ballot question, 60-40. She
That's
voted
right.
for the other side. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's
That's
it.
all the time
That's
we
it.
have.
Exactly.
Okay. After the 1 o'clock news, a Valentine.
Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms. And Furniture Consignment Gallery, committed to the circular economy for over 30 years. Current inventory is available to view in their showrooms in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. More at FurnitureConsignment.com. And the Boston Philharmonic with conductor Benjamin Zander, performing Strauss's 4 Last Songs and Mahler's 4th Symphony with soprano Claire Booth at Symphony Hall, Boston, February 16th at 3. Tickets at bostonphil.org.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, a Valentine's-themed edition of How Do You Two Know Each Other?
Yeah, with the straw. That's somehow actually our topic next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Vice President J.D. Vance told European leaders gathered at the Munich Security Conference that their biggest security threat was not from Russia or China, but from their own suppression of free speech inside Europe. NPR's Rob Schmitz has more from Munich.
After a week of top U.S. officials making comments about negotiations with Russia to end its war in Ukraine, European leaders were expecting Vance to lay out the Trump administration's vision about the future of Ukraine. Instead, Vance delivered a lecture on how European leaders should listen more to supporters of far-right and populist political parties, and by not doing so, said Vance, they're failing to live up to their democratic ideals. Vance also warned the audience about out-of-control migration. Vance received only tepid applause throughout his 20-minute speech. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Munich.
Some members of Congress are voicing support for a top New York prosecutor who quit in protest over concerns about politics infecting the Department of Justice. The acting U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Danielle Sassoon, resigned after a top Justice Department official ordered her and other prosecutors to drop their bribery case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. 5 additional lawyers also quit. Sassoon had raised concerns about quid pro quo. Well, on Fox and Friends today, Mayor Adams flatly denied that claim.
Think about my attorney, Alex Spira, one of the top trial attorneys in the country. Imagine him going inside saying that the only way Mayor Adams is going to assist in immigration, which I was calling for since 2022, right, is if you drop the charges. That's quid pro quo. That's a crime. It took her 3 weeks to report in front of her a criminal action. Right. Come on, this is silly.
Mayor Adams on Fox.
Autos and auto parts fell roughly 3% compared to December. People spent less on furniture and clothes, and online shopping dipped almost 2%. But comparing this January to last January, spending increased almost across the board. Sales at restaurants and bars are up 5.4%. Sales of autos and parts are up more than 6% from a year ago. Only 2 categories declined. That's sales at department stores and at hobby/sports/musical and bookstores. Alina Seluch, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow is down more than 100 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts wildlife officials have added 22 plants and animals to the state's endangered species list. That brings the total now to 453 native protected species. We have more from CCU.
The Acadian hair-streak butterfly is one of the newly listed species. Once found in more than 40 towns before 2020, the agency updates its endangered species list every 4 years. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm CCU.
A man from Honduras accused of sexually assaulting an 11-year-old girl in a state shelter in Peabody in early December has fled the country before police could arrest him. Globe reports that 32-year-old Jose Santos Ortiz Carranza was relocated to another state shelter housing families with children after he was accused of the assault in Peabody. By the time police obtained an arrest warrant, which was on February 4, Carranza had left the country. In sports, professional women's hockey, it's the Boston Fleet in Toronto this Valentine's Day. 30 degrees in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. arm.com. This is NPR.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you. We're going to be back here next Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday. Hello again. Jim.
Hey there. By the way, Sheila, after hearing the blooper reel from our old show Matt did for us, Sheila says, I miss Marjorie's oops. Well, I have very good news for you. Totally coincidentally, at the end of today's show, our current team has put together a briefer, a brief-ish blooper reel of both of us, actually. So stick around for that.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you.
That should be fun.
And welcome to our second edition of the new series we started yesterday. We're affectionately calling it How Do You Two Know Each Other? Here at the interview desk, James Beard award-winning baker Joanne Chang, you know her as the co-owner of Flour Bakery, also working on a new cookbook about the joy of baking cookies, and obviously they have Myers and Chang too. The they includes Christopher Myers, who happens to be her husband, who asked one of our staff people to wipe off his headphones because he thought they might be diseased or something.
You got to be careful these days.
Exactly.
Very
and he
careful.
is the co-owner of all of those things. I'm not supposed to say this, but they actually are two of our favorite people. Happy Valentine's Day and happy 25th anniversary of Flour. Is that right?
you.
That is fabulous. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's really great.
Okay.
It's great to see you both.
I asked you this before, Joanne Chang, and I thought it was such a great story, so I'll ask you again today because of our new theme. How do you know each other?
So I met Christopher, at this point, 30-some years ago when I was looking for a job. I was working in a cafe, a bakery, and they were selling, and I wanted to find another place to work, and I heard about this restaurant, Rialto, that was looking for a pastry chef. So I went in for the interview. I went in and sat at the bar just to see what the restaurant was like because I didn't know anything about it. And went in with a friend, sat at the bar, and Christopher knew my friend, came over to say hello, and then he heard that I was a pastry chef, and then he
immediately told her a joke.
The best joke in the world.
Oh, what's the joke?
Why did the apple turn over?
He hasn't said the funny part yet.
Oh, I thought that was the joke. What's the end of the joke?
Because it saw the jelly roll.
Oh, my
God.
Okay, now.
And she chose you.
You have to know, she's super into corny dad jokes.
We know that.
So she loved that.
That's fabulous.
She loved
Wait a minute. I think when you told me this story before, you said, who is that cute guy sitting over the end of the bar?
Did you say
Isn't that
that?
what you said?
She did.
I think so.
She was very aggressive.
She was very...
By the way, was there a flour before him? Did you have a flour? First flour you created together? Everything together?
Correct.
Okay.
I named it.
You did it? Why'd you name it Flour? Well, I guess.
Well, it's very funny because we argue about it 25 years later. I wanted it to be Flower, hand to God. And the logo was going to be a flower coming out of a sack of flour.
I like that.
And then she went to the graphic designer without me, and it didn't become anything like I thought it was going to become.
So, again, continue with our theme for a minute, and then we'll move on.
I think Flour, Flour, is better.
Okay, well, it is what it is. That is what it is.
We're going to give these Marjorie cookies.
Oh, by the way, before we get to... actually, I had a question for you, but at the end of the segment, you made like a zillion cookies that you're going to share with people in the audience here. Tell us what some of them say, please, Christopher.
Okay, so... First of all, I want to say you can throw these questions away because we had a lot of material.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, what do you got there?
We did bake a bunch of sweetheart cookies. They're reminiscent of the little sweethearts you would give away when you were in grade school to your love. We have some cookies that say Flour loves Marjorie.
Oh.
Flour loves you.
Flour loves BPR, Boston Public Radio, and Flour loves Jim.
We made one. We made one that says Flour loves Jim. But there's a lot to say Flour loves BPR because we certainly love BPR. There is
Thank you.
There is one cookie that says fanny pack.
If you didn't listen the other day during pledge.
Earlier in the week, I believe the quote was Jim said that BPR is hanging by a fanny pack.
That's right. That's right.
So one of these cookies says fanny pack. If you get the fanny pack cookie, you win. I don't know if anybody remembers this boat. Whose boat is this boat? It's a collection of quotes of Trump's that he made during the hurricane. many years ago.
Oh, my God.
It's really hysterical. I bought 100 of them when they first came out.
I'm writing that
This
down.
is my last one, so it's a collector's item.
That's beautiful. So, so the cookies at the end of the segment for everybody here. Stick around. Best baker in America, in our estimation, and James Beard. Well, he's dead, but James Beard Foundation too. In a moment of semi-seriousness, what's it like working with your husband? I don't mean this. I mean seriously. How hard is it, or how good is it, or how whatever it is? And you're going to be asked the same question. So, how is that?
Well, for me, it's the best thing ever because Christopher has had previous partnerships, business partnerships. Yep. I know many people who are in business together, and there are challenges to any partnership. But the thing that I love about working with my husband, my life partner, the love of my life, is that we are always geared towards the same goal. And so we don't have any of the weird ego stuff or it's not challenging in any way when it comes to like trying to make decisions that are good for the business. And the best thing is for us is that, as I think the two of you know, we're complete opposites. And so the things that I'm awful at, Christopher's awesome at, and the things that he doesn't love to do, I love to do.
Like what?
What don't I love to do?
Yeah,
Christopher doesn't love a meeting. I love meetings.
Oh, okay.
In that, I mean, I don't like meetings just for the sake of meetings, but I love gathering together with the team and talking to them about the minutia of how we're going to make these cookies better, and then talking for hours about how they're going to be better.
Well, you left out the major difference. You're an incredibly nice person. So what's it like working with the nicest person in Boston?
Who wants the one Flower Loves Jim cookie?
Seriously, what's it like working with Joanne?
Well,
by the way, whose background, when you were at Harvard, you were a math genius, right? Is that what you were doing?
Well,
you were, right?
I studied math.
Okay, whatever. She was a math person.
Yeah.
What's it like working with her?
Her dad's here. He's a math.
No, is that true?
He's a math genius.
Where's your father? Where's Joanne's
Where's
father?
Papa? Right there.
It's so
Papa.
nice to have you. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. Great to see you.
What Joanne said about working with me as a partner is exactly what my former partners would say about me as well. Just a dream come true. For me, Joe has an ability to focus in a linear fashion that I simply do not have. So she always keeps me on task in a way that is extremely unnatural to me. I like strategizing. I like blue sky stuff. She likes the minutia, and I get to think, and then she loves to implement.
Okay.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
So you.
I did want to say one thing.
What?
It's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
And everybody has Valentine's Day like habits and customs, and ours is we wear each other's lingerie on Valentine's Day. So you can only guess what I'm wearing. And,
oh my goodness!
And Dad, I don't know if you knew this. And you can only imagine what she's wearing.
Okay.
Not a stitch.
Excuse me.
Just kidding.
I think that's very romantic.
But it's Valentine's Day. Everybody should be doing
Valentine's Day.
something really different to express love and connection.
Okay,
so I
that's
would
very
like
nice.
everybody out here to maybe switch lingerie with something near them.
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Christopher Myers and Joanne Chang. You
Who's
had
it?
something to say, Marjorie?
Well, I was going to talk about the Earl of Sandwich.
Oh,
Because,
yes.
Yes.
No,
yeah.
it's not the Earl of Sandwich anymore.
It's not the Earl of Sandwich anymore because you are opening a new flower bakery. Now, this is right in the middle of Boston Common. This has quite a history at the Earl of Sandwich. So give us the deal.
I'm not going to say it.
You're not going to say it?
What was it before it was the Earl of Sandwich? Exactly. Okay. Go ahead, Jan. Tell us about the new place. Opening in April, is that right?
It's opening in April.
Okay.
It is near the tennis courts and the baseball field, near the pavilion. And if you walk by, it used to be the Earl of Sandwich, but it's just a tiny little 600 square foot rotunda. We're going to be offering kind of the greatest hits from the flower menu. We go there every day with our dog, and so we've been walking by it for years and years and years, and then most recently for the last 3 years with our dog. And at one point, we kind of looked at it and thought, man, a flower should go here. And then the city, I guess the Earl of Sandwich, their lease ran out, and so the city put out a request for a proposal to see who would want to take it over. So,
And you've got going to have hot dogs there, I understand.
We're going to be doing different stuff there.
Yeah, okay. A couple special things.
So I just want to tell you something. Millions of Americans are shaking in their boots because a long time ago, Elon Musk was not invited by Joe Biden to a summit on electric cars, and we see the results now, slash and burn all over the federal government. My radio co-host here, Jim Browdy, apparently was not invited to your summit your panel
He wasn't.
on hot dogs.
He wasn't.
And a lot of us have had to pay a steep price for this, Christopher. So
He wasn't.
can you explain yourself?
I asked to be invited, and I was excluded.
He was excluded, and it's not been easy around here at Boston Public Radio.
So we had a
We
big...
saved you, Jim. We saved you.
No,
I'm
seriously,
serious.
seriously. We had a big Frankfurter taste-off, and we got every gourmet, everything from Hebrew National to Pearls to
Nathan's
Kayam to
and-
Nathan's
Yep.
to Sabret's, a couple of real fancy deli dogs from Brooklyn, and we had a taste-off, and it was we just boiled them and ate and tasted, and every one of us at the end of it was sick as a dog.
So did you not want us to say a minute ago that you're having hot dogs? It was in the paper.
No, we haven't. No, we have
and soft serve.
We have a couple of unveils.
Well, tell us
today.
The soft serve, we did
soft
the
serve?
same thing with soft serve. We had a huge soft serve tasting, and we all went home sick. But it was really yummy.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you can't have a steady diet of.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And by the way, are you still going to have the patio or the whatever the thing is outside kind of thing?
Beautiful patio.
But that's a perfect, because people are there, obviously they're in the wintertime for ice skating,
Right.
But it's really packed in there in the summertime just with tourists. I mean, soft serve.
Tourists
and hot
and
dogs
students.
are perfect. And students, that's right, too.
So if anybody remembers the Boston Speeds dog that used to be out at...
Chet Curtis took me in the meat market district.
One of the greatest hot dogs of all time.
Describe him a little bit.
Oh, the old man was a beautiful old man. Old black gentleman with beautiful piercing green eyes. And he used to have a food truck out at Newmarket. Is that what it's called? At Newmarket, where a lot of the fish purveyors are. And he had this...
Not even a truck, a little cart. I mean, a little tiny cart he had.
That evolved into a truck.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that. Okay.
it was, I believe he got the name Boston Speeds because you would get there for your lunch hour. You would waste 50 minutes of it waiting for him to make your hot dog because he was very methodical, very slow. And then you wouldn't go back to work because it was big and it had beans and relish.
Homemade chili.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. So we're going to do a flour dog that is an offshoot of that, much lighter, so kids can try it because that thing was that was an undertaking. So we're going to do something like that. So a hot dog, we haven't decided the dog yet. We're still in the second round of taste off. If you want to come to that, you're more than welcome to.
I don't think so.
We've narrowed it down to 3.
It's a little late for that. By the way, just because we like to be historically accurate, it was the Earl of Sandwich until a while ago.
Yes.
What was it? What restaurant was it before?
Before then, it was they had cakes.
What was the?
They had cakes, didn't
You'll
they?
understand this
Yes,
in a
they
minute.
They were urinal cakes.
It was urinal.
But,
it was urinal.
Public restroom.
I'm not going to say that anymore. This is the last time I'm going to say it.
But you know,
it's not
we
helping
don't have
the
enough
business. I know
public
that.
restrooms in the Boston Common or a public garden, and it's really tough if you go there with little kids. You know, that always have to go to the bathroom every 15 minutes. It's tough.
We're going to be doing branding stuff and we want to do something funny like that, say something about its former history, but we don't think that's going to be.
You don't think that's exactly?
We're working on, you know, when you have a hot dog stand, you have all the gross pumps like at Fenway, that's relish and all that.
Yeah.
We're going to put that on the inside, so we're going to make the dogs ourselves.
We're going to do it for you.
You are?
The T-shirt
Yeah,
we're
we're
thinking
gonna
of that
finish
is.
them off for you.
You are. Oh,
Because
great.
otherwise the
That's
pumps
a
are gonna
very
be
good idea.
dirty
I don't
out
like
there.
all that pump stuff.
So the slogan
The
is,
slogan is, we're still working on it.
But go ahead.
We pump our own. What do you think?
or we do the pumping.
Yeah.
Oh, we do the pumping.
Well, I think for a start, that's very good. Thank you. Now, let me ask you another question before we get to some serious business. You're reading the slogans on, we love BPR,
Yes.
flourless BPR, flourless
The nice
margarine.
ones.
You gave me a box of cookies.
Uh-oh.
That I would like to read some of them on the air.
No.
I can't read this one.
Joanne's dad's right there.
Her father's here.
Wait, I
Right
can't
there.
read. Wait, let me see. I can't read that one. And I can't read these. Okay,
cannot
thank
read
you.
them.
But happy Valentine's
Well, tell
Day.
them what that is.
Well, you tell them. You made the damn cookies.
You
Joanne,
tell.
and by the way, you're perceived to be the most wholesome person in Boston. I don't think so. Go ahead. What do these cookies say?
So we have the sweet cookies, which
sweet
we just
cookies.
read to you all, and those sell really well. But what sell even better are our XXX rated
They
cookies.
are really XX. You sell these?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Oh
that.
yeah. We
Oh,
sell
are
them
they
2-to-1
huge?
to these.
Oh,
yeah,
that you
to the nice
do?
ones, yeah.
Sort of says everything.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So the ones that are above the counter say what you would say when you got your little box as a kid. Be mine, I love you, you're so sweet,
Right.
kiss me. These don't
Don't
say
say
that.
that.
So when somebody comes into flour, Can they see them displayed and
So
point to them,
we
or do you
used
have
to-
to ask for them, like
This
the
is actually
naughty
really funny.
magazines when you were a kid?
Kind of. So we have the sweet ones displayed, and then we also have the naughty ones displayed next to it with a sign that says, please ask. And so I walked into one of the bakeries yesterday, and there was a platter of the naughty cookies, and the guest was asking to see them, and so we showed them to her. And the staff member said, which ones would you like? And she started reading all of them out loud.
Oh, no!
She was like, I'm blank. No, that's not good. Something blank. Nope, I can't do that one. Oh, that one. Me. That one works.
There you
And she
go.
read off like 5.
A liberated woman.
Our shipping department has made a mistake once or twice.
Is that true?
gosh,
Where
they
somebody
did that
sent
once.
like a half a dozen cookies to their great-grandmother,
yeah.
and they all came
They
in.
died, obviously,
Licked
as soon
by
as they
this
opened 'em.
and
Can we? I know Valentine's Day. You said a show will be upbeat and what. Can we spend 2 minutes on serious stuff?
Sure.
How is business for you guys, and how is the restaurant business in general right now? Starting with you, Joanne Chang.
Well, business is okay. January is always a challenging month for everybody. So we just got off of a pretty quiet January, and the weather doesn't help. But Valentine's Day is always kind of the turning point. The weather changes a little bit, and people are out buying sweet things, and then it usually turns around. So overall, we're doing okay. We're excited about opening the new location, which will definitely help just bring more excitement to Flower and bring more people.
Christopher, what is this, not so much the execution, because it's not happening at least yet, and hope it doesn't, the threat of mass deportation mean to the restaurant industry? We read in, I think, the New York Times last week,
Yes.
as much as 40% of people who work in restaurants in America are, not to mention the farms that supply a lot of the things you sell and make in your restaurants, are undocumented people. If this becomes, well, even before it becomes real, a lot of people aren't leaving their houses, not taking their kid to the doctor or school. What's the consequence of this?
I could think of an execution that would solve all those problems. No, we can't say that.
No,
Okay.
you said-
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a joke, obviously, totally a joke. Go ahead.
It's not going to make any of the service industries easier. And what it means more than anything, whether it's a tax break, whether it's crackdowns on immigration, it all means more inflation. We're in a big inflationary period now. It's going to mean higher prices for everybody. We're not going to have enough employees. No one's going to have enough employees to do their jobs. And that's never good for anything.
Are you part of a national restaurant group, or are you?
We are.
Well, one of the things we talk a lot to both Corby Kummer, you both know, and a lot of the business people, the silence of people in industries, agriculture, restaurants, at least as far as we can tell, in the face of a business-crushing move by the administration is amazing to me. And I assume it's the same fear that almost everybody is exhibiting. They're scared to say boo.
Well, I also think people are wondering if it's really going to happen.
Yes.
Because we went through this 8 years ago. If it were to happen on the scale of, whatever you read in the paper, I think every restaurant would shut down. It would be like COVID to another level. And COVID, we all took part in it. Like, you couldn't escape it. But this, I think there would be people who would have no idea the impact to restaurants.
Yeah, because so much of the staff are people that came here from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what I wondered too? There was a lot of debate, or I don't know if this will happen either, but Trump ran on this idea of not taxing tips. Is that a good idea for the restaurant business or not? No.
It'd be impossible to implement, absolutely impossible to implement. And the loss in revenue for the government would be astronomical. It just absolutely could not do it.
Yeah, when you say it's impossible to do, though, why is it impossible to do?
I mean, all the tips are run through, at this point, the majority of
Credit
tips
cards.
come through credit cards.
Yeah.
So it's money that, comes through a digital platform that then goes onto somebody's paycheck, which is also through a digital platform. Like, I just don't see how you would carve out paying tax. We all pay taxes on all of our paychecks.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can just say, oh, except for this part.
Okay, I see
Can we
what
get
you're
back to
saying.
Boston Common?
Yes.
Some texters are trying to help you out. How about this? Full service, we pump for you.
I like that.
That is actually
I
pretty
like
good.
that. That's cute.
How about
Yeah.
we pump your dog? I'm not.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't
I don't
sound
think
right.
so.
What kind of dog do you have?
That's all wrong.
We have a little rescue.
Yeah.
Oh.
named
Oh,
Beansy.
it's such a sweet dog. I've met it too. It's the sweetest, incredibly
Is she
friendly.
big, little?
Oh my.
She's small. She's about 25 pounds.
That's a good
Lovely
size.
thing.
She's not the friendliest.
The only
not
one
good.
she likes less than Jim is Mrs. Browdy.
That's right. We didn't call her that, but
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
they have a very good relationship.
They really
By the
don't.
way, I just while you two were talking, I looked at. There's not one cookie I can read.
No.
Not one I can read.
You have to use use your
on
imagination.
the air in this show. So can we spend the last minute?
Let me say one thing before
Please.
we have
no guest does what you do.
okay.
This is sort of
It's
our
fine.
show.
Look at what they
Sound
brought
like-
us, Jim. I would
Okay.
say
Oh, you're right.
stop
That's a good
complaining.
point. Go ahead. Stop complaining, Jim.
You didn't bake cookies.
What do you want to
That's right.
do? What do you want to say, Christopher Myers?
We have a special pastry that we're super excited
yes,
about
exactly.
for that's only going to be
For Flower
at
Boston Common.
Flower Boston Common.
What is it?
And we're calling it the Embrace. And
no, is that true?
Oh, my gosh.
It's a braided babka.
It's like a little
chocolate braided
individual babka. and
Is
it
this
looks-
real?
Yeah, totally.
This is great.
Yeah.
We're only going to sell it there, and all the proceeds from the sale of that, all of them go to Boston Foundation.
That is fabulous.
That's wonderful.
By the way, they don't say this, but they are incredibly community-oriented and incredibly generous with a lot of organizations that make Greater Boston what it is. They don't talk about it, but I happen to know it to be true.
We talk about it. We're all.
Can we spend the last minute here where we started about your relationship? This is serious, not a joke. What advice do you give to people who are starting in business, who are coupled or siblings or whatever? Starting with you, Joanne, what do you say to them?
Well, I think, this is going to sound so cliche, but communication is really the key. And I think, as you can tell from this 20 minutes with Christopher is a master at just saying whatever is on his mind. No filter.
I'm a
But
master
it's
at that.
great. It's actually awesome when it comes to business because you don't wonder.
Yeah.
And so I can ask him anything, like, do you think this tastes good? Or what do you think about this idea? And he will honestly tell me. And then sometimes we butt heads, but we always get to a great place. And I think if you're going into business with anybody, whether it's your business, your life partner, or just a person, you need to be able to speak openly with
You want to add something to that?
I would make it about our relationship first. We were friends, we were very serious, really honest friends for 10 years before we got involved. And so she knew everything about me, and she still made this decision. So I would say that's a great way to start off a relationship with anybody, because when you rush into that stuff with all the hormones and the pheromones and the love and the passion and all that, you overlook a lot of stuff. And she saw all the stuff, and I saw all the stuff. And
there they are.
Yeah.
What's the name of the cookie cookbook?
The Joy of Cookies.
Oh, when's it coming out?
It comes out in spring or summer of 26. So I'm in the middle of writing it now, testing recipes.
26, okay.
Yes.
One last
And
thing.
you've got a lot of great cookbooks. And I think for people, the one that with not that much sugar,
Yeah.
for people that are trying to cut down is great because they taste just as good and they're much less sugar.
When I say, I want to end with this, that Joanne is one of the kindest, nicest people I've ever known. The evidence of that for me is a bunch of years ago, we had a cook-off, if you remember. Marjorie and I both baked something from one of Joanne's cookbooks. And I think it's fair to say Marjorie's were probably the worst thing that has ever been baked. Is that a fair?
I do not think so.
No, they were. They were the worst
Did
thing
I do
ever
the corn
baked.
muffins with the raspberry
Whatever
jelly?
it was inedible.
I've improved on
inedible.
those.
And mine actually not only looked beautiful, as Joanne Chang
Okay.
said, they were very tasty, and she complimented you because that's the kind of person
That's
she is.
right.
It was
Well,
incredible.
I'm a work in progress.
Do you have
when it
anything
comes
else you want to say
kitchen.
since you sort of took over the segment? Go ahead.
I do, only because you said she's the nicest person ever, and you
One
didn't
of
say
them.
that about me once. It's Valentine's Day.
Here it goes.
Yeah, go out and tell somebody that you don't know you love them. Make a friend with a stranger who doesn't vote the way you do, doesn't look the way you do. If you don't need this cookie, give this cookie to somebody that you're walking by on the street and just say Happy Valentine's Day. We need more freaking love in this world.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
See why I love him?
That was great.
And give them one of these.
Thank you so
they'll
much.
chase you home.
These cookies are going to be available for all of you in about 90 seconds, so
Yeah.
go nowhere.
Yeah.
Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you
and we love
very,
seeing
very
you guys.
much.
Oh, and
And
whoever gets, say that again, whoever gets.
Whoever gets the
Fanny
fanny
pack.
pack cookie.
It's in here somewhere.
This
It's the
book is
book.
up here waiting for you.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Adrian will have it.
Aiden to you.
Aiden.
Aiden to you.
Okay. Thank you so
Great to
much.
see you
This
both.
was such fun. We've been speaking with Christopher Myers and Joanne Chang behind Flower Bakery and Myers and Chang in the South End, which is a great restaurant in the South End. And of course, the new Flower is going to be in Boston Common pretty soon. After a quick break, we are closing the week with you. President Trump is going to war for plastic straws. Are you frustrated by the pettiness or relieved at the thought of never having to use one of those paper straws, which he doesn't like, for as long as you live? That is next on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
From GBH News, I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Join me for What is Owed, a podcast exploring how one of America's oldest cities is figuring out its reparations debt.
Available at gbhnews.org and wherever you get your podcasts.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked /1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day event featuring keynote speakers including Brooke Shields, Cint Marshall, and Jessica O. Matthews. Thursday, March 20th, in person in Boston and online. InclusiveLeadership.com. And the Huntington Theater. The Boston Family UFOT cycle continues in The Grove, playing now at the Huntington Calderwood. A young queer daughter of Nigerian immigrants comes into herself. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Mark Dregan, Jim Browdy, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. If you're not here, you not only missed the show, you're missing Myers and Chang themselves, walking around the studio at the library, handing out their Valentine's cookies, the good ones. The other ones are great, but they're not handable-outable. Earlier this week, Donald Trump signed an executive order to get rid of paper straws. It's a long-held belief for Trump during his 2020 campaign for president. He sold Trump-branded plastic straws and cashed in nearly $500,000. So what do you make of Trump's national strategy to end the use of paper straws? It's a real thing, by the way. And what are you to do if you live in a city or state that has their own policies banning plastic straws? Those bans are still in place, as far as we know. And let's be honest, the only people who really care about the environment are people like me, Marjorie, who do not use straws at all.
Okay, Jim.
There is no such thing, in my mind, as a good straw. 877-301-8970. Now, you use what kind of straw, Marjorie? Because you do use a straw.
Well, this, I think, is a silicone straw. I've gotten rubber straws online. You can also get metal straws. So you don't have to really use paper straws if you don't want to. I don't know that there's been this attack against plastic straws, like you said. I mean, a lot of places still have plastic straws, so I'm not sure what the president is really talking about.
Do you wash those, the reusable straws? I hope you do, right?
Well, there's this horrible story about this woman who discovered black mold in her reusable metal straw, and she thinks it made her sick. The doctors are saying they're not really sure that that's what made her sick. But yes, you have to wash them. They recommend that you wash a water bottle like this after every use, but you get one of those little brushes. And you do like the brushes.
Do you actually do it or no?
I do.
You don't just run water through the thing, or?
Well, I don't do it every day. Maybe every other day or something. Because they get dirty. I mean, even though it's just water, they get dirty, and you have to clean them out. But I think it's important to clean out the straws.
Do you remember where the movement to ban plastic straws comes from? Do you remember this image?
No.
The tortoise with the straw in its nostril.
Oh, yeah, that was horrible.
That was one of the worst things
ever. That was
ever.
horrible. Well, these stories are talking about the billions and billions of plastics that we dump into the ocean every year, and that's one of the reasons that people that are worried about the environment say don't use the plastic straws, because people use them once and throw them out, and they just go to the landfill, or they go in the Atlantic or Pacific or Indian or some ocean somewhere in the world.
What's wrong? By the way, the only straws I ever use, I realized. One, one of my older kid gave me flavor straws for Christmas because I talked about them. I didn't even know they still exist. You know what a flavor straw is?
I guess it's something that tastes like something.
You shove it in milk, and I do not drink a whole glass, and it's got chocolate or strawberry in the straw.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So when you suck it up, whatever.
And did you mention the pasta straws?
I was just going to say, what are they called again, Jamie? The hole in the pasta thing. What's it called? Bucatini.
Bucatini.
So you can do sort of like an edible kind of straw.
Yeah, the idea is you can put the bucatini in your straw, and it's shaped like a straw. And then apparently it lasts a long time. They're tasteless, but if you want, you can take them out of whatever you drink in there and throw them in and cook them for dinner, I guess. I don't know how long they last before they're they say they last about an hour before softening up. So you can use those if you're, into having the edible straw.
Before we get to calls and texts, let me just say, so that I don't sound as insensitive as some of you think I am, and I think Marjorie, obviously there's some people with disabilities who need a straw. Obviously that whatever they use is fine, hopefully something that's climate friendly. Why do people who don't need a straw use a straw? Why do you use a straw? Why don't you just drink out of the thing, buy some, pop up the little top thing, and drink out of the thing.
Well, I think lots of people use a straw because there's a lot of ice in drinks, and they want to get to the liquid as opposed to the ice, and they feel like it's more.
What do you do?
efficient.
Swallow the ice? I mean, what do you
No,
do?
if you throw it up like this, you have a lot of ice, and you might get a lot of ice. Where if you have the straw, you go right down and not get the ice. And by the way, a lot of these, I don't have it with me today.
Yeah.
But a lot of these. Containers, water containers. This is a Stanley cup. Has a straw that you can just fold down. It's a plastic. It's not a plastic straw. It's a silicone straw, but you can fold it down so that you don't have to worry about it spilling all over your car or when you're carrying it around and stuff like that.
That's fabulous
It
news.
is fabulous. You can clean that too with a little brush.
I should say, thank God Trump has taken on this issue as prices explode. Let's go to Ellen. No, I'm serious. It's really an important thing. Let's go to Ellen in the car. You are first on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about the straw and you. Hello.
Yes. Hi, Jim. I'm calling back. It's the horseback riding summer jobs lady.
Oh, Ellen, I know you or remember you. How are you, Ellen? What do you think about this?
Well, I developed a while ago a resistance to these straws because I support a turtle rescue.
Oh.
And I don't know if you remember, like 5 years ago, Greenpeace had that horrible video about the straw being pulled out of the giant.
Someone I know very well just mentioned that on the air. I love that guy.
Yes.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, so I went, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. So I, at like 8 Dunkins, am known as the paper cup lady. So I get a iced coffee, but in an extra big hot cup, paper cup. You don't need a straw because it's a hot cup and you can sip, it has a sippy top. I recycle the top, and even though it has a little bit of plastic lining, it's still biodegradable.
That is really spectacular. That is very creative, very thoughtful, and very climate friendly. Ellen, thank you. It's nice to talk to you again. Thank you very much for your call.
Okay, we have a few texts here. If you live long enough, Jim, you'll use a straw, I guess.
Because older people use straws?
And another.
Is that true?
Well, I guess so.
Can you look that up, Jamie, please? Thank you very much.
And then another texter says Elon Musk probably owns a plastic straw company,
right.
So that is why Donald Trump.
You know, one of our colleagues. Remember when we had Ken Burns on, and he had done his Benjamin Franklin thing, and everybody's talking about all the great things Benjamin Franklin. You know what I learned from the Ken Burns film? For men, the most important thing ever invented by
catheters.
The flexible catheter. Catheters existed before. But he invented the flexible catheter. Thank you.
Which the
Benjamin
texter
Franklin.
points out is a straw of
sorts. It is
sorts.
sort of a straw for a different purpose.
Okay.
Let's go to Mary in a car. Mary, you're next. We're talking about straws on Boston Public Radio. Hi.
Hi. I just find it so infuriating that Trump is distracting everybody from what he's doing and why we're not at war with him over his treasonous acts. Mm-hmm. And we're wasting time over straws, which really shouldn't be. There should be no plastic straws. But why aren't we at war with Trump over his destroying our country and Doge, which is, once again, eroding our economy?
Mary, can I tell you, I'm really glad you didn't take time to call in on this issue. So you're, I mean, Mary, no, Mary, I think in fairness to us, we have talked about every single one of those things ad nauseum for 3.5 weeks, and we intend to continue. We figured we'd take a modest break. Your point, I think, is very well taken, but occasionally even we need a break from the stuff that does real damage. But by the way, plastic does real damage too. Mary, we appreciate your point, though. Thank you much for the call. 877-301-8097. When you look at these cookies that have these slogans on them, can you believe?
They're pretty risque.
They're pretty risque. Where do you want to go next?
Okay, listen to this texter. How much can you say on this subject? You two are really grasping at straws.
Oh, God, that is so unfunny. Thank you very much.
There you go. Linda in the car. Where's the straw fit in your life?
Wait, that was from Aiden? Oh, that was?
Oh, that was
Sorry.
Oh.
Aiden is suspended for Monday and Tuesday of next week. Thank you.
Okay.
You can come back on Wednesday after the show, Aiden. That's it. Okay, go ahead.
Linda in the car. What do you think about the straws in your life?
Straws in your life?
Straws in me.
Go ahead, Linda. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm drinking out of a lovely metal straw that I got from a fundraiser that you guys had a few years ago.
We did?
Wow.
Where was it?
One of the gifts.
We did?
One of the gifts that you had.
That's wonderful.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Where was that? Where did we do this?
We talked about straws
on the radio.
before.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fine.
Yep.
The only problem with metal, Linda, and I don't want to talk against our own self-interest here, don't you hate when the metal of a straw touches your teeth? Does that bother you or no?
It's still better than plastic, Jim.
It is.
Okay, well, I just can't. It is better than plastic, but I can't do the tooth metal thing. Linda, nice to talk to you. Thank you for your memory,
And you
too.
can get
there.
ones online. Some of them are like 18 inches long. You can cut
Yeah.
them to your preference and fit them the way you want to fit them.
Yeah. And by the way, can I get back to Mary's point? We should be talking about more important things. Microplastics are a pretty important thing, and there's zillions of straws that people drink, and there was a serious effort in a bunch of states to deal with this issue, and he has decided to spend his time doing something else that is not very friendly to a troubled environment. In any case, Chris and Warwick, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie. First time, long time.
Oh, thank you. We love that. Thank you
very much.
All right, everybody. I'm in good company with my ultimate point here, but let me just say, I'm an environment first kind of guy, and something about a paper straw on my tongue is like nails on a chalkboard, tongue depressor.
Yeah.
They're a big miss, I think. But I think the solution is easy. No straws.
I'm with you. Some people need to use the straw. Other than those who don't need it, I'm with you. So why aren't people doing that?
Because the straws are just there. They're just there, you know? I mean, it's something we got used to. They're free, they're easy, they're everywhere. But if they weren't there, the people that really need straws or insist on straws can have a collapsible metal straw with a nice cleaning brush, or like Marjorie said, a silicone straw. I mean, they just need to know they're available and commit to it. But one other point, let me just say about Trump pushing the straw thing, not to harp on it.
Yeah.
You know, Trump's buddy over there at Uline is a mega donor for the whole Trump agenda there, and I'm sure that Trump's worked out some sort of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours with the straw sales.
Hey, Chris, since you've thought a lot about this since your first call, what do you think about Marjorie's ridiculous argument about ICE a few minutes ago?
You know, it makes sense, I think.
That's too bad.
But again, it doesn't make sense enough to have plastic straws everywhere.
Well, she doesn't use it. To her credit.
I have my straw right
She
here.
is. Hold that up, Marjorie.
Well, you know why I
Chris,
do
thanks
it?
for your first call. Make another one soon, please.
Because I can sip on the straw discreetly while I'm on the radio as opposed to like jiggling all the ice around.
Why don't you do it right now and see if we hear you? Wow, that was very discreet. That was really discreet.
Thank you, Jim.
That
I
was
try
excellent.
hard not to annoy the listeners by making sounds.
That was beautiful.
Okay, let's go to Eliza on Cape Cod. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Eliza.
Hi, guys. I've been listening for a good long time, so I'm really excited.
We're excited to have you. What's up?
Thank you. So my pitch is hemp plastic. We already have legal cannabis in Massachusetts, and hemp plastic can be biodegradable. Also, growing hemp is really good for our soil. It can pick up and take out a bunch of toxins. So I feel like it's two birds, one stone. Let's make straws out of hemp, and it's good for the environment.
Hey, Eliza, don't go away. You have a rotten connection, but I just have a quick question because I never heard of hemp. Is hemp plastic really plastic but biodegradable, or it's just called plastic for whatever reason? Is it really plastic?
It is made out of hemp,
Okay.
cannabis,
Okay.
and
I know
it
it
is biodegradable.
Okay, sounds good to me. Hemp plastic, according to Eliza on Cape Cod. Thanks for your call, Eliza. We appreciate it.
Okay, we have a couple of texts here.
Yeah.
This is the last straw.
Oh, my God.
I'm turning my radio off.
That's not Aiden, by the way. That one was not.
And here's
Thank
another
you.
one. Will Donald Trump mandate that Dunkin' Donuts put their iced coffees back in styrofoam sleeves next?
This is a serious question. Other than, let's assume he has some financial interest, which the caller was suggesting, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't, when we're doing our research for this, I didn't check. Why would one do this except to further show I don't give a damn about the environment, I don't care about climate crisis?
I think it is a lot saying that the whole environmental thing is a big hoax, but we can hear him himself explain.
You do? We have that?
We have a clip of him,
Oh, great.
Donald Trump, last
Great.
Monday signed an executive order to get rid of paper straws. I think we have a clip.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work.
No.
I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode, If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation.
It's
so
horrible.
we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay.
He signs
And
the order.
I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
Now, can I ask people in the audience, how many of you had an experience of a paper straw exploding right in front of you? How many is that? Oh, nobody here, but I'm sure there are other circumstances. Did you ever have a paper straw explode?
Well, no, they don't. They don't explode.
No, they don't.
But he drinks Coca-Cola all day long.
Diet Coke.
And so I
Diet
imagine,
Coke.
Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And I imagine that he drinks lots of times with straws. And so he's into the straw issue. Jim.
Isn't he into the shark issue? Isn't he worried about being electrocuted versus being eaten by a shark?
Well,
Wasn't that a thing during the campaign?
During the campaign, he talked about, would you rather be eaten by a shark?
Can
or
we
would
try
you
to find
rather
that
be
sound, if you guys don't
sliced
mind?
in half by the propellers of an electric boat, or the electric boat was
Who
going to
hasn't
go down?
thought about that dilemma?
Yeah, I may have it wrong about the propellers. That would not
We're going to get
probably
it.
be
I think it was an
electric.
electric battery from a, wasn't it your...
Electric battery, it was something.
Okay, whatever.
Okay, and I don't, yeah.
Oh, we do?
We're going to look
Let
for
us
it.
know when we have it.
Okay.
Oh, we do.
have
Here
it.
it
Oh,
is.
here it is.
Here's the shark versus the battery or whatever it is. Here it is. Here's Donald Trump.
I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted, or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
No. Well, I have to say, I've never heard the question before. I don't know about you.
Yeah, okay, it was electrocuted. I thought you were going to get chopped up by the
No.
propeller, but I
No,
guess
I
you're
don't
going to
think
get
that's it.
electrocuted.
Okay,
So
fine.
I don't know.
Well, there you
anyway,
have it.
Mary in Rhode Island. What
Hello,
do you think,
Mary in Rhode Island.
Hello.
Hello.
How long have we had plastic straws? They're not that old.
Since The
I
Graduate.
think we had plastic straws.
That movie where he said plastics.
We had paper straws before plastic straws, and we seem to have made it through that period of
That's
time.
a very good point.
I don't think it's necessary.
I'd
like to know how long plastic straws have been around.
Can I tell you, Jamie and Aiden are standing here. I would say within 30 seconds, we will know how long plastic straws have been around. So, Mary, please stay tuned. Thank you, Mary.
Mary's raised a great point.
What was
though.
her point?
We were tougher then, Jim.
We were.
We could live with the paper straws, and now I guess we're not as tough as we used to be.
We have news for Mary. Mary is,
1960s.
she's right,
Plastics from The Graduate.
1960s.
Don't you remember that great line in The Graduate?
Yeah, plastics.
Plastics.
But that wasn't about
I
straws.
have one word for you, Benjamin.
Plastics, yeah. That
That's
was
right.
Dustin Hoffman
That
for
was
people
Dustin
who are not
Hoffman.
100 years
If
old.
you haven't seen that movie,
Now, the problem with
it's
this
a really
next
good
caller
movie.
is every time she calls, I'm sure she hates this, I have to explain who she is. No radio show in the history of America has ever had anybody juggle live on the radio, and she juggled before we had streaming, which makes it so you couldn't even see it unless you were here. She's Jenny the Juggler. Jenny, it's good to talk to you in Cambridge. How are you?
Oh, you're so sweet. I feel maybe like I've called too much. I just
No, we love
guys,
you.
And,
You're really
thank
talented
you
and a
for
great
getting us
caller.
through these times.
Thank you. You're nice, Jenny. What's up?
No worries. Well, I'm reiterating some of the previous callers. We, unbeknownst to most people, it seems we are already endowed with this amazing technology that could replace straws.
What's that?
It's our mouth.
It is amazing tech. It is.
You just have to lift the cup up a few more inches.
Okay.
Jenny, I'm with you.
I don't get it.
Okay, Jenny,
Jenny, again, the exception is some people need a straw for physical reasons. Other than that, you're totally right, and we love hearing from you. Call us again soon.
We have a
Jenny
few
the Juggler.
people explaining why some people need straws.
Yeah.
Here's a good one.
What
When
is
you're
it?
driving. If you're driving and you're drinking something, you'd rather drink it out of a straw than bring the cup and block your view and have it spill all over.
I
That's a
don't
good
think
one.
so. Okay.
And then somebody points out that people use straws to keep stains off their teeth or cause cavities or pain, or if they don't like to get the cold on their teeth. But then somebody else points out, and this is a really important one,
What is it?
straws cause wrinkles around your mouth.
That's not true.
Like smoking
Is that because
does.
because you have to make a sucking thing? Marjorie, can we get Marjorie on camera doing the? That's me. No, I'm Jim. Marjorie's the other one. Can we get Marjorie sucking on us? No, we
No.
can't.
Okay, too
I didn't
late.
think so. Now, an anonymous texter says, are those exploding straws a straw of mass destruction? Where did Trump get them? In Iraq? We don't know, but Jamie will check it out, and he'll get back to you in a few minutes.
Okay, Todd in Attleboro, thank you for calling.
Hello, Todd.
Hey, guys. Yeah, so I am very anti-straw in general. I
love that.
refuse them. I think they're for kids, and that's what I tell people when I go out to restaurants. I get the argument about driving, the stains on teeth possibly, maybe women using lipstick.
Lipstick. That's a big one, Todd. I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people have said that.
Right. So, again, straws are I just don't think an adult should be using a straw. That's just my big opinion on straws.
I have to say that's rather rigid, but I am totally with you. I really don't get it. I understand Marjorie's argument sort of about the ice or the whatever, but you could live without it. And the solution would be we wouldn't have to fight over paper versus plastic or metal. We just move into the no straw, pro mouth, as Jenny the Juggler said. All right, Todd, thank you very much for your call. I appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
One of the texters uses a glass straw. Says there are different sizes for different drinks or smoothies, and they go right in the dishwasher.
I think I've used the glass straw. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
You want to take
bamboo straws? They're available on Amazon.
I've also used the bamboo straw once, maybe, or something.
Have you used the
hemp
pasta? The pasta straw?
The bucatini, I have, actually, just for, I mean, they say it's edible. You're not going to eat a raw piece of bucatini, I don't think, you know?
No, but some people are saying, why would you want to do that? If your bucatini has been in Coke all afternoon, you're going to put that in the pan and cook it for dinner? I don't know.
Well, it's one strand of bucatini, Marjorie. I think people can probably do with getting rid of that and then cooking the rest. Of, you know what I mean?
Okay. Ann in Situate. What do you think, Ann?
Okay, Ann, hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Yeah, so my grandmother used to use glass straws. She was an Irish immigrant, lived in Dorchester. I guess it doesn't really matter, but I'm proud of my heritage. But I ended up ordering some glass straws from Amazon.
Ooh.
And they have a bend at the top, and you can put them in the dishwasher on the bottom rack with the utensils, and they clean beautifully and reusable. So I don't have to use plastic straws anymore, or paper.
Can I ask a stupid question? How does a glass straw have a bend in it?
Yeah, I guess that's the way it's manufactured.
Oh, you mean it's literally, it's when you get it, it's got a bend in the thing. It's got that was a stupid question, Jenny.
Okay.
I got it, Ann, thank you.
We have to go now.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
We have another minute.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
I've just gotten instructions from Jamie to
We're
go
doing now
because the staff has done a blooper reel. So I'm going to...
This is a contemporary blooper reel.
It's okay to say that? Okay.
This is now.
This is now.
This is not from our old show.
We always make fun of Marjorie's mistakes, so now we're going to have more of Marjorie's mistakes.
No, not just Marjorie.
Oh, you made some too?
I believe I may have.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Look how happy
Here we go.
everybody is on
Here
our
we go.
team. Go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie going to have the hiccups, so if that happens, it happens.
Big old alien bug, Stewie and Squishy. Okay.
Oh my God.
Something about shoving glizzy after glizzy. I guess that's their name for hot dogs.
Down my gullet.
Glizzy after
Let's
glizzy
hope
down.
it's a hot dog.
Yeah, that's right.
I was a little round mound of sound because I drank Pepsi.
Hey, how's it? How's those gnarly waves? I'm sort of out of it now in a general kind of way. I always love people that prance around naked on television. I would like it from my neck down to the bottom of my butt. That's what I would like.
Oh my God. Is Jared around or are we not doing it? Is Jared around? Okay, hey Jared, you there?
Not now.
What are we doing here? Oh, it's not the end of the show.
Oh.
Whoops. Oh,
gosh.
Marjorie's happy because I screwed up.
That's right. I always love it when Jim makes a mistake. Maybe I'm losing my marbles. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm the Dogler. We'll see you tomorrow. In my dreams, I'm the Dogler.
Hold on for 1 second. I seem to have misplaced my promos that I just did.
Marjorie was editing her promos. I would say a grand total of 9 seconds later, we start to record them. But obviously, that 9 seconds, there's a lot of things that can happen to the promos. So they are gone.
They're gone.
Promos are gone.
That can't be possible.
Apparently it is.
I didn't even move out of my seat.
She literally did not even stand up.
Oh, I found them. I
She
found them. I
them.
found them.
I
I
mean,
found them.
this
I
is
found them. I
Much
got them.
ado about nothing.
I got them. Douglas from Belmont.
We're in trouble. Okay. Douglas and Belmont, start
Hi,
talking
Douglas.
quickly, please.
Oh, my God.
No, if we are nothing, we are professionals. I mean, is that pretty clear?
Very, very
We're going to talk
professional.
to Edgar. We're a little bit disorganized here, but not so much we don't know who you are. You're
Yeah.
Edgar B. Herrick III.
Edgar
Did
B.
you know
Herrick
that, by
III.
the way?
What's that?
You are Edgar B.
I
Herrick
am Edgar B.
III.
Herrick III,
And you
yes.
have this culture show thing.
There is a culture show
that is
thing that is
happening
going to
in
be
4
happening
minutes.
here at the Boston Public Library
Yeah.
in just moments.
That's
Jim, in
incredible.
just
What are you
moments.
doing exactly?
Well, right now I'm enjoying the reaction from the crowd here at the library to that wonderful bit of audio we just
Very
heard. I
professional.
would say
Good.
it's ranging from horrified to confused out
No,
there.
that was us actually who was horrified to confuse.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, we're gonna discuss the beautiful audio that you put together for the end of your show. No, we're gonna be talking about some of the headlines this week. Of course, you had a lot of stuff happening at the Kennedy Center.
Yes.
President Trump sort of shaking things up would be one way to put it.
One way
Taking
to put
things
it.
over would be
Yes.
another. So we're going to talk about what happened in Washington there. But we're also going to be looking at things like Saturday Night Live has a huge weekend this weekend.
tomorrow
They've got
night.
a big
Tonight.
concert tonight.
Tonight,
Huge
yeah.
concert tonight.
Oh, it's tonight too.
Tomorrow night on Saturday, what they're going to be playing is the original episode. So the 1975 original episode of Saturday Night Live will air in the Saturday slot, and then there's a 3-hour live thing happening on Sunday. So it's going to be a big deal for Saturday Night Live.
So why don't you say, Jim, do you know anybody who after one of the SNL shows went to the Village Vanguard and who was playing on the stage but Chevy Chase and John Belushi? Who was that person?
It was, of course, you.
Jim, do you know anybody
That would be me.
Oh,
Thank you
no
for asking.
kidding.
Actually,
Wow.
it was pretty exciting.
Whenever he asks those things, it's always about
It's always
Jim,
him.
as we
Okay.
know.
2 o'clock, correct?
2 o'clock, yeah, just 3 minutes from now. So don't go anywhere.
Hey,
Don't
do we-
go
That
anywhere.
dial. Don't leave your
Just
seats.
real quick, do we have
Yes.
any sense if people seen these or they're not seen them? We don't know if they're great or not great.
Seen these
The
what?
SNL stuff.
We don't know. I mean,
don't
it's
know, so
live.
it's gonna find
it's
it
going to
out.
be
Okay.
concert tonight. It's going to be a special with just about everybody that's ever been on SNL is
Well,
going to
they've
be
had
part of this thing
so
on
many
Sunday.
great
Yes,
musicians, so it's going to be great.
It's going to be a big deal.
Okay, that sounds
Bye,
fantastic.
Edgar. Have a
Thank
great
you
show.
very
Good to
much,
see you, Edgar B. Herrick III.
Okay, thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thank you very much to people that came down to the Boston
Thank you
Public
all for
Library.
coming.
Really
We appreciate it.
Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or you can check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. On Monday, I have finally prevailed over Jim and convinced him to allow us, all of us, to have a day off on the holiday. So we're going to be off the air, but back. We're going to be discussing anyway, in a repeat, Nova's latest film about unidentified flying objects, which is really good. Members of the Community for Restorative Justice are going to be with us. Retired federal judge Nancy Gertner and author Marianne Leone on her great memoir, 5 Dog Epiphany. I want to thank our crew. I think is that Tuesday or Monday?
Monday.
That's Monday. Okay.
Best of.
All right. Best of on Monday.
Yep.
Okay. I want to thank our crew. Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Tamsin Vital. Our engineer is John McClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena. Thanks too to our host at the Newsfeed Cafe.
Now united with Holy Family Hospital to help build a robust regional healthcare system defined by a shared commitment to patient-centered care and medical excellence. More at lawrencegeneral.org. And Elephant Energy, specializing in all-electric heat pumps from Mitsubishi Electric. Elephant Energy helps homeowners looking to reduce their carbon footprint. Learn more at elephantenergy.com.
This is 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you.
Live from the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, this is the Culture Show's Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
I'm Edgar B. Herrick III, and this is The Culture Show. Coming up today on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, President Trump purges the Kennedy Center and appoints himself chair of the board. Here he is on Air Force One explaining why.
We don't need woke at the Kennedy Center. We don't need some of the shows were terrible. They're a disgrace and they were even put on.
So, with Trump in charge, could we be bidding farewell to their signature classical concerts? And will we be hearing more from Kid Rock?
You ready to celebrate here tonight? Come on! It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Gone somewhere.
From there, it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It just unveiled its list of 2025 nominees. Here's a sampling of some of the musicians who could find rock and roll glory in Cleveland.
It's a nice day for a white wedding. Let me light your candle, cause the mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around. Come on, baby, let's do the twist. Gonna get out of that way.
Plus, Paul McCartney's one-man magical mystery tour lands him in New York's Bowery Ballroom, wowing fans with a surprise performance. And after weeks of challenges, just one contestant was left standing. The widely popular reality show Beast Games has crowned a winner on its season finale.
I am standing on $5 million, the grand prize of the most insane competition show you've ever seen.
Plus, a cultural juggernaut marks its 50th anniversary this week.
Live from New York, it's Saturday night! I got fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
I'm Callie Crossley.
I am James Bennett II.
And we are going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with President Trump taking over the Kennedy Center. So, over a matter of days, the president dismissed 18 Kennedy Center board members appointed by Joe Biden to 6-year terms. Typically, there are 36 members of the board, 18 usually Democratic, 18 usually Republican. The 18 Democratic ones were dismissed. New ones were put in. They voted for a new chair of the board, and that vote went to Donald Trump himself. To solve that, there probably will be something he wants to see now, I assume. What do you make of all of this, Callie?
Well, I assume if he gets to pick who gets the medals and who performs there, then yes. What I make of all of this is that it's really sad because that was a specifically, explicitly nonpartisan entity, and they worked very hard to make sure that it was kept that way. He's been invited many times to attend performances there, always turned it down. Some in his capacity as president and other times just to come to the performances. But he just didn't have any interest in it. And so now someone's told him something about the performances there, which is just wrong. I mean, some of the most talented people have graced those stages, and so many different audiences have been able to take part in what's been performed there. So it's really heartbreaking. I would use the word heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I want to say that you, Callie, just said that it's a very non-partisan board, and it's non-partisan because it has to be political, right? Because this is art, right? And so because art is inherently political, it does make sense, right? That to have a dare I say, diverse or inclusive array of programming across not only, it's, the Kennedy Center Honors and, those ceremonies and welcoming, these talents, but also the ballet, the National Symphony Orchestra, which, it's all bureaucratic, so there are all these sub, committees and boards that are involved. You kind of do need to have some dialogue with people that are at least bought into the furthering, right, of artistic, communities to make the programming itself make sense. I'm really curious to know what Usha Vance has to say about, what's going on with the ballet or the NSO.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I was looking for with Usha Vance, and then now Dana Bloomberg, who is, people may know, Robert Kraft's wife. She's just got named to the board. I searched to find out if there was any evidence of their expressing anything about arts or performance at any level, culture. Couldn't find anything. However, Dana Bloomberg, at her wedding to Robert Kraft, they had all kinds of folk. Meek Mill, Elton John.
Yeah.
She's been in many other situations with a variety of artists, so I'm just going to assume from that she has an expansive view of perhaps the arts, at least the performing arts that we know about, and could bring something to that conversation. Usha Vance is someone who is well-educated. I'm going to assume perhaps she has. I don't know the other people. But we actually don't know. What we do know, which I'm sad to say, and that means the board would really have to talk to the president about it, since he's now named himself chair of the board, is that
he was elected chair of the board. He strongly suggested he wanted the job, and then they did actually hold an election, and he was elected.
Thank you for keeping me honest about the process.
That's how it
happened.
happened.
My point is that I don't know any time that I've heard him express anything about arts and culture, except to say he doesn't like it.
Well, let's put this in a little bit of context over what's happened over the last few weeks, right? We talked here on the Culture Show just a few weeks ago about an executive order that dealt with architecture in particular in federal buildings, right? There are changes, and we're going to talk about this in a bit. There are changes afoot at the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. There are, depending on how you look at it, feared more changes to come to those organizations. And in a post on Truth Social and X, Trump, when he named his new longtime foreign policy advisor Rick Grenell as the executive kind of head here, he said basically, Rick shares my vision for ushering in what he called a golden age of arts and culture. Now, this is very much in keeping with the way President Trump talks about a lot of things, but what do we make of this as part of, or, kind of one leg of a stool of a golden age of arts and culture? What do we think he means by that?
I mean, maybe it's a golden age of the golden age past, right? I'm classically music minded, at least with a lot of these, announcements, right, with coming out of the Kennedy Center. Donald Trump, I think, likes the idea, right, of art and culture. And there is, not even beyond him, right, there is a cultural lean to liking the idea of dressing up and going to the opera, going to the symphony, going to the ballet. And it is fun. But it does take, I guess, like a mental willingness to be ready to engage, with that. And so if you're thinking, let's just kind of play the hits, the Beethovens, the Mozarts, the Tchaikovskys, whatever. Great. Like, that's great music. But from about, 2020 on, a lot of these institutions have been rethinking, should we be, putting in more, dare I say, again, diverse or inclusive composers? Because that's also what the concert goers sometimes want. The Kennedy Center, right? I think this was from The Guardian. But, $125 million of its operating budget, right? That came from just revenue. And so
ticket sales, essentially.
Exactly. And so if
right.
you're going to reprogram everything, you still need to reprogram to what people want who buy those tickets, and not just what, the board is hoping the people they appoint to, program this, music or performance wants.
Well, I mentioned this on BPR just a couple hours ago, but they did cancel one thing since the announcement is made, and that was a musical commissioned by the Kennedy Center called Finn. It's a musical set in a water shark world. There are adults playing the characters, but the theme of it was just be you. So there's a young character who wants to be a certain kind of shark, but he wears sparkles. You see where I'm going. It was supposed to be a touring company presentation over several cities. They performed it there in December, rave reviews, huge audiences, to your point, James, critical acclaim, but they canceled it. So that's the first thing under the new administration.
Let's look at this. In this cancellation, right? So you have the folks who behind Finn, right? They sort of noted that they premiered in December to rave reviews, and they say, and financial success leading to the show being chosen as this touring thing. Now, in a brief statement to Deadline, the publication Deadline, the Kennedy Center spokesperson said that they canceled Finn, and it was for purely financial reasons. So there's a little bit of
Make your excuse work. you know. But you know, what else got canceled too? Issa Rae had a performance coming up in March, and I think it was.
But that's self-canceled.
That's
no?
self-canceled.
So let's get into that. Let's talk a little bit, because now this has happened over the last few days, and now we are seeing some reactions from folks. So Issa Rae, who is an actress producer from HBO's Insecure. She canceled. That was a self-cancellation in protest, and not the only one.
Right. Ben Folds also stepped down, and he was the artistic director for the National Symphony, as you mentioned. I mean, Ben Folds is I don't know that there'd be any argument about his talent. You don't have to like his work.
He's okay on the piano. He's not too bad. And he can sing a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's huge. And Shonda Rhimes, that's a name people may know, because at one point she owned all of Thursday night on ABC. So she's a huge content creator, and she resigned. So we don't know. I mean, these are people who have demonstrated talent, but yet they've been.
Well, let's talk about talent. So. Fairly talented local artist, Yo-Yo Ma. He's a cellist. Yeah,
yes.
Heard of him? Yeah. So he's a cellist, and here's a little sound of him reflecting on performing at age 7 for President Kennedy.
Roger Stevens put together this concert many years ago. It was an extraordinary moment because as a 7-year-old, I went to Washington, D.C., and I was asked to play. It was the very first fundraiser for what eventually became the Kennedy Center. And there was President Kennedy, and Leonard Bernstein was hosting the evening. He was the MC. I mean, what an unbelievable introduction.
I'd say.
I don't know if you've ever seen that clip before, right? But that moment seems so antithetical to the current kind of cultural temperature emanating out of D.C. What Bernstein says, right? Because remember, Yo-Yo Ma's, parents from China moved to Paris and then moved to New York. And so what Bernstein is doing is tracing kind of that route along the world, and just the wonder that it just so happens that this talented 7-year-old cellist, and I think he's playing with a sibling, in that same concert. How cool is it that now they're here in D.C. playing for President Kennedy?
Yeah.
Right? That is not a glowing, I feel, introduction that necessarily might not be welcome, today. It's quite a thing to see.
Yeah, it is.
So let's turn our attention briefly to the National Endowment of the Arts. As I was saying earlier, there have been some changes afoot. There are people who expect maybe there will be more ahead. This week, the NEA has essentially said they're cutting a grant program which was called Challenge America for the fiscal year 2026. These were $10,000 grants that get doled out all over the country to a wide array of programs. They have encouraged instead people to apply for the GAP program, Grants for Arts Projects, and they've said that they're going to be putting an emphasis on things that are honoring America 250 rather than maybe what they would have typically funded. And they also make the point that anybody who is applying for a grant must adhere to all recent federal action from the president, namely that DEI cannot be a part of this.
So that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So here's a question that someone raised and I think it's appropriate. Does that mean that Black History Month, celebrations, observances are off the table? That is not DEI. The problem is there is a definition of DEI that's held in the heads of some people that's incorrect. But we don't have time to discuss all of that now because people don't know how to react to this. So you're doing a Black History Month performance, or you're asking for funds to support something. That's I don't know where this stands now, and nor do these people. How do they evaluate that?
How do they go forward? Because again, when you're, I'm not a grant writer.
Yeah.
What I do know about grant writing is that it is a very, very tedious process because you're inherently justifying every single thing you want those dollars to do, right? And so, this announcement kind of makes it sound like, they're just handing out money kind of willy-nilly, as they say. Yes. I can't believe I just said willy-nilly on air. That's crazy work. But it's true, grant writing is a job for a reason. A lot of thought goes into this. And they know that grant is going to be scrutinized by as many people from as many different angles to make sure that we know exactly where that money is going and what it's going to be used for and why it is a net good.
And also, you have to bring up the deliverables. You know what I mean? At the end, let's say you get the grant and you don't do what you said you were going to do.
I mean, you have to.
You are out
after the fact and say, "Here's how we use the money.
That's
here's what happened." All right.
Right.
Well, if there is no DEI, something that is unlikely to happen under the Trump administration, something that will not be coming to a theater near us, is the idea of subtitles at live theater. Now, this is a piece this week that was put together by Tim Rice, famous lyricist. So, of course, the lyricist is kind of like, I think we should write the lyrics right up there on the stage because the lyrics are important. But anyway, Tim Rice famously works with Andrew Lloyd Webber. He has kind of put a piece out into the world today arguing for more subtitles at live theater. He notes that, and we know this, younger people in particular are much more inclined to watch subtitles on television when they're watching television, even if they can hear it fine, right? Something like, some studies say up to 80% of people prefer to just kind of have the subtitles on. I don't know, folks here at the Boston Public Library, you out there listening, I don't know if you're a subtitle person. I am. This is something opera has done pretty successfully for some time now, and he's saying, like, hey, let's do it in the theater.
It's so one of the reasons that subtitles are so very popular on streaming services, and they're very popular on streaming services, is that the mix
is terrible.
So hot.
It's so bad.
Hot. And by that, what we mean for people listening to us is that the voices of the music and the background and the voices of the actors are mixed at such a high density volume that you can't make out any of it distinctly.
And it's mixed, right, for theater speakers. Your computer speaker's not going to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
That mix is not for you.
Right.
You're not like them.
That's
you
right.
know. And so
Kendrick.
Thank you. And so that's why my thought is like, I get what Tim Rice is saying. Yeah. Because I love a subtitle in the theater, even more than a seat back, at the opera.
Oh, interesting.
I do. But the thing, though, is like we need to understand, why those subtitles, should exist. And it's not, at least for me, it's not for that reason of I use this at home. Let me get it in my live theater as well. And also, I could be wrong. I'm not the musical theater person here, but I feel stylistically, musical theater is much more. The singers are much more inclined to slow down and enunciate.
Well, it's interesting, though, because Tim Rice does, in this piece, he does make a distinction about why he thinks it's important. So he says, in something like Evita, for example, which is, one of his works, he says, when Don't Cry For Me, Argentina is being sung, everybody can hear that. Right? However, there are oftentimes big numbers that include the entire
it's a solo,
chorus.
To be clear.
Right.
It is a solo.
Yeah, that's a solo moment.
Yeah.
It's one voice. It's very clear you understand what's happening. But he noted a performance of the musical Chess, which had this big choral number that's kind of funny, at least in his estimation, was written to be funny. And he said that there was a production where they did have the subtitles up, and he was like, for the first time, I saw an audience laughing and giggling and kind of hearing it all and getting it. I mean, I think of like the end of the first act of Les Mis, for example, when everybody's kind of singing a different part at the same time. It can be, I think, in that live moment, difficult to understand what they're all saying, and it might not be a bad idea in those moments to have something to be like, oh, that's what he said. That's what he's saying. That's what she's saying.
Well, I do absolutely get his point with a song like Popular, because that is so clear. I want to be popular. I mean, you can hear it.
That's what they're saying?
Yes. From Wicked. Thank you very much. But anyway, those lyrics are so clearly articulated by all who have sung them. And so that makes it easier. And who among us, I know I have been singing wrong lyrics to something for years, and then somebody says, those are not the words. Because I misheard them. So he has a point in that way.
But just to play crank real quick.
Do it. Get off my lawn. Get us all off your lawn,
So
James.
Patti LuPone of Evita fame,
Yes.
notably, her thing is that this younger crop of singers, they don't know how to project. They don't know how to bring kind of that clarity to the music.
The kids these days don't know how to
They're
sing.
not locking in. We're losing recipes.
All right. Well,
you might be right.
You are listening to our Arts and Culture Week in Review live from our GBH studio here at the Boston Public Library. Hey, if you're not at the library, you can also be watching us on our YouTube channel. James is decked out in a very nice pink for Valentine's Day. Callie's got some incredible glasses. And I have the one red piece of clothing that I own on, which I was urged to do from our producer. Valentine's Day, here we are. Coming up, Paul McCartney is not insecure about crowd size. He wowed an audience of just 500 as a pop-up performance in New York this week. We'll talk about that and more. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
The people who entertain us.
Whatever you do, if you give up, you've already failed. You just have to keep trying.
The world in all its wonder.
My favorite thing was doing the bird calls.
The ideas that spark creativity.
The thing that I have always loved about games is the ability to imagine different worlds.
Joy and inspiration every day on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Bryant University, presenting the 28th Annual Women's Summit. Elevate your journey on March 13th, a day of professional empowerment. More at wsummit.bryant.edu. And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, hosting Art in Tune, an evening of live music inspired by the MFA's collection of art and musical instruments from around the world. February 27th from 6 to 8. mfa.org. And Explo. From comedy to veterinary science, Explo's summer program helps middle schoolers find their spark. Day and overnight options at explo.org/summer. Priority deadline, February 15th.
Why is college tuition so high? Why are there so many fees? And why won't my credits transfer? If you've ever had any of these questions, we're answering them on our podcast, College Uncovered. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Culture Show. I'm Edgar B. Among the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees, Callie, you wanted to talk about Chubby Checker in this song, in particular when you saw the nominee list come out. How come?
Because my parents played them all the time. So I heard the songs all the time in the house, and the Twist was a very popular one. And I just only know him by that song. I think a lot of people may only know that. He popularized, actually, a lot of different dances. He did another song called Pony Ride. And I also didn't know that he felt some kind of way about not being nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So in 2001, he took out an ad in Billboard saying, "Hello, you snubbed me, and I'm not appreciating it." He's 80 years old now. That song came out in 1958, and in 2008, Billboard named the Twist the highest chart hit of all time.
Do you think the Twist, James, do you think the Twist alone, which is really what Chubby Checker is known for, as you said, Callie, I mean, he certainly had other songs, he had other minor hits, but he is really, really known for that one, and then milking that one, right? There was like Twist Again and Twisted Summer.
Twist Again was a hit too.
Yeah, so, I mean, he really did the Twist thing, he milked it for all it was worth. But do you feel like that alone kind of puts him into the pantheon of the Rock Hall of Fame?
You know, I actually do. I think this is a thought that I've come to a bit more recently, like in my life, outside of just music halls, but other famous halls, history halls and sports halls. Because you have to think, like, if you say get in for, not diminishing anything, but let's say you get in for one notable thing.
Yeah.
If that thing is really notable and that has touched everybody else in that room of statues,
then that's
the case. I mean, listen, will people remember Joe Flacco for wonderful performances with the Baltimore Ravens? No. Will they remember that one time he went off in Super Bowl 47? Yeah, reason to get in, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So, it's like if your one thing is that big of a deal, and the Twist is that big of a deal, there you go.
What do we make generally the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, it is obviously it's an institution, because it is an institution, but it's also an institution kind of broadly in quotes, and one that in some ways I feel like it has become the attention on it, I think, in recent years is on the upswing, oddly, in terms of these nominees coming out. I think maybe in part because they have increasingly been making an effort to make some choices that for some purists they look at and they go like, well, I don't know that that's rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, you had, kind of famously some country artists going in. We're obviously at a point where hip hop has been around for so long. You have hip hop artists who are being either nominated or inducted. And I think that's maybe brought a little bit more attention to it. What do we think just generally? Where does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame kind of sit right now in our culture?
Well, I assume that years ago when they made the decision to move out of strictly rock into other genres and just pay attention to, as James said, the person that did the thing that was quite popular. So I guess they were interpreting rock and roll as, a movement of the people that touched people in a different way. And so if you use that kind of definition, then you can bring many more people into the fold in terms of inducting them into the Hall of Fame. I would say also maybe it's getting more attention because the folks that they're putting in, either I say, weren't they all already in? Like Joe Cocker.
Joe Cocker.
Who's nominated
I
this time?
thought he would be in.
Well, let's talk about some of the... So the full list of nominees right now, it will only be some portion of these that actually make it in. We'll find that out in the spring. We've got Bad Company, The Black Crowes, Mariah Carey, interesting, we'll come back to that, Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Billy Idol, Cyndi Lauper, Joy Division, New Order, who are two different bands but kind of the same band as like one banner, Maná, which is the best-selling Latin American rock band kind of all time.
And there's never been a Latin American rock band in the hall before. Right?
And never been.
Yeah.
Never been. So that's a huge sort of surprise to some, but also another sort of class of people saying like it's about time. Oasis, Outkast, Fish, that's PH, Fish, Soundgarden, and the White Stripes. That's the full list there. So, James, in that list, what sort of jumps out at you?
Let's just run down that list, man. White Stripes, they were first eligible in 2023.
Yep.
I think, that is that kind of sound that people still kind of associate with, rock, in quotes. But even more so, Oasis.
Oh, here you go.
Second time they're ready. Second time they're on the ballot. First 2024. And
famously, brothers who get along very well.
Oh, it's such a wonderful fraternal relationship. Let it be known, too, that I actually got tickets for the upcoming tour. And it's the first time I ever bought ticket insurance, because I do not believe they'll make it to the end of the summer.
So wait, so James, what is
That's
it
true
that
rock and roll.
that you like about Oasis? I mean, were you a huge fan? Was it the right time in your life? Do you still listen to Oasis? Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I still listen. Generally not as much as I used to. I don't know if it's an embarrassing thing, but I think that I discovered Oasis the same time I was getting into the Beatles, and those first, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 Oasis albums, there was a lot of criticism they were getting for doing some odd
Beatles
kind of
pastiche.
Beatles cosplay. Let's take a listen.
Let's listen to a little. For those who don't know, here's Oasis with a classic Supersonic from their '94 album, which I love. Definitely Maybe.
I mean, the references, the occasional nonsense lyrics, the very exaggerated, accent. In this case, Liam and the Gallagher brothers are, notably from Manchester. But they each also have had these individual solo careers after they broke up. And dare I say, I think that especially Noel Gallagher, who was notably the songwriter, pretty deep and, fun and say talented solo career after the brothers' breakup. But again, they're back. We'll see how that reunion goes.
You have travel insurance, so whatever.
It's very, very smart of you. Well, I want to point out, this is a second nomination for Joy Division and New Order. This is largely the same band, but the difference is Joy Division, the lead singer, Ian Curtis, who died of suicide at the age of 23 in 1980, he's in Joy Division, and then New Order is kind of what comes up out of the ashes. I like that they've been nominated. I don't know that I think of them a little bit in a way of a late 70s, early 80s Velvet Underground, in so much as they weren't hugely commercially successful, but the influence that they had on all of these other bands around them, everybody from REM and The Cure, who are contemporaries, to bands like LCD Sound System and Arcade Fire today, it's just like a wide range of influence. And I think I like the idea of somebody like that in a Hall of Fame, where there wasn't the kind of maybe necessarily commercial success. So let's maybe listen to a little. Let's hear a little Joy Division right now.
I've been waiting for a guy to come and take me by the hand. Sure, these sensations make me feel the pleasures of a normal man. New sensations, experiences, leave them for another day.
And a little New Order with their 83-track Age of Consent. Great album. Or a great song from a great album, Power, Corruption, and Lies. So there you go. Now, real quick question before we move on from this topic, because I really want to know what you all think about the Mariah Carey one. Because obviously, like, an incredible artist, but Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, question mark? Do you think she belongs there?
Well, in the new Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is when they're recognizing all these other people from different genres, as I said, yep, I think so. And if commercial success has anything to do with it, for sure.
What about for you, James?
Have you heard Rainbow? Have you heard Butterfly? Have you heard the rest of that Christmas album?
Yeah.
It's very
Great
good.
point.
Into your
That's a
play,
great point.
Right? Even if it's just on All I Want for Christmas Is You alone, the answer is yes. But like, she's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's true.
So speaking of the rock of punk poetry. Smith, Beyonce, what are our thoughts on these big tours?
Patti Smith, I'm glad to see she's still out there doing it. 1975 was Horses, the album.
Yeah.
It's very popular. She has many stops on her tour. Obviously won't be as big as Beyonce's, but I got more interested in her after she wrote her book, Just Kids. And so I think she brought some new folks to her in that same way, so I think she'll do well.
I'll get to this later on, but with Patti Smith, I am interested to see or to know or find out what those audiences look like.
I am too.
Because, I feel that,
Interesting,
especially it's for 50th anniversary of Horses, right? It does still feel speak kind of in a musical kind of like landscape. And, with Beyonce, you think about like the hugeness, right, of that tour. And a thing that I discovered, and I'll just throw this real quick, is people are upset again about the whole Ticketmaster thing.
Right. That's
that happened with Kendrick, that actually happened again with Oasis or whatever.
Yeah.
I was looking this morning, and some aftermarket vendors, the tickets are very reasonably priced.
For Patti.
No, this is for Beyonce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is just an odd thing to think about. I don't know. Maybe Ticketmaster figured it out.
Yeah. So you were just talking, James, about like wondering what the audience for Patti Smith's going to look like. So our 24-year-old producer Max got tickets immediately. So that's at least one person who's going to be there, and apparently it is sold out already. For the whole so that's coming in November. At least the show here sold out. Almost in pre-sale. So that's interesting. I mean, I find that to be kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, do we think Beyonce not slated to come here, right? At least now. Do we think, or is there going to be more added?
She keeps expanding. She's expanded in Chicago and London, in New York, in big arenas. So
MetLife Stadium in New York, and it's like 5 or 6 shows or something like that, right?
So she'll probably expand again as they just watch as the ticket sales. But I personally know people who've gotten tickets as well.
To go already.
Yeah, and they're very excited about it.
What do we make? Did we see the modest Bowery Ballroom, very famous venue in New York City? Speaking of New York City, about a 500-person venue, and James Paul McCartney himself, the Beatle, dropped in for a last-minute gig.
I think that would have been fantastic. Because I'd like an intimate space.
Yeah, I like that venue.
And I like an intimate space with an artist who has been there, done that, and everybody there knows what they're getting and are coming just to appreciate the artistry.
Here's the notable thing too about that show, and that's why I brought up the question about who's going to be at that Patti Smith tour.
Go on.
You know, those tickets, first of all, $50 at the door only.
That's right.
I want to say that it was cash, but they probably took card. That is how ticket sales should be.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney's getting in front of their tour. I promise, right? Those tickets are not going to be $50.
Yep.
Right.
That was crazy to find out. But even more so, I was reading a review of the show in Pitchfork, and I was struck in that 500-ish kind of capacity venue. You know, the reporter was talking about he was looking at 18-year-olds, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, 20-somethings, you know, that were going and knowing exactly what they were getting into. In addition to, you know, I guess an older slate of like that early 40s, you know, millennials. So it wasn't just people that are familiar with Paul McCartney, with Wings, with, you know, Beatles that happen to be able to afford to live in Manhattan. They were to rush down. And it was filled with that kind of crowd. But it was, again, this musically, you know, curious or knowledgeable audience that wanted to snap a $50 ticket.
What do we make of Paul choosing to do this? I mean, he obviously doesn't have to do this, right?
I think for big artists like that, that's just big fun for them.
Yeah.
That reminds them of the old days, you know, when
the
people
Cavern Club.
Yeah,
and,
nobody knew them.
Liverpool.
Or just for the love of it. What a thrill to be able, in any arena, I guess, but particularly if you're an artist and you're not fighting for audience, you know they want to be there, and everybody wants to be there, and you want to be there. That's fabulous. How could it get any better?
I mean, it really shows you're in touch too with, like, you know, another generation of audience who, again, may not be able to go and see you, you know, at that big, you know, arena. They know that they're reaching you. It kind of almost reminds me in a weird way, right, of those stories about Bill Murray just kind of showing up to 10 Bar unannounced for a while.
Totally.
Right? Or like Bruce Springsteen, like showing up at the Stone Pony, you know? It's like, oh, he's back. That's one of our guys. Like, for the culture, let's go. Let's listen.
Yeah, I went to the Monterey Jazz Festival last year. Samara Joy was big headliner.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I went to the club, the little bar afterwards, and she showed up and did an hour.
I love when they do that.
It's the best.
It's great. Yeah.
Well, Paul McCartney's got another thing happening this weekend on Sunday. He's going to be part of this huge Saturday Night Live thing that's happening, which we're going to talk about in a second. Coming up, we've got that. They've got 3 different sort of things happening this weekend for Saturday Night Live. We will get into that when we're back from this very short break. This is The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Once upon a time, the business of gambling was run by the mob.
Those, the meat and potatoes.
But then the government wanted in on the action.
It's the same old story. The government sees money to be made, they get involved in it.
The bookies versus the bureaucrats.
Senator, come to order.
Scratch and Win is a new podcast from the creators of The Big Dig. It's about this competition and about the fiercest competitor of them all, the Mass State Lottery. Find Scratch and Win wherever you listen.
Support for GBH comes from you. And American Repertory Theater, presenting The Odyssey. From the Cyclops to the Sirens, audiences can experience this cultural touchstone's mythical adventures like never before. Now playing through March 16th. amrep.org. And Dover Rug and Home. Rugs and carpeting for today's lifestyle with in-home rug trial and design consultation. Dover Rug in Natick, Boston, Burlington, and online at doverrug.com. Dover Rug. Rugs and the people who know them. And the Massachusetts Historical Society, presenting the Making History Gala with author Nathaniel Philbrick on March 11th at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Tickets at masshist.org/gala.
Breaking news, deep conversations, and the stories that matter to you. GBH News, always on the radio at 89.7, available on the GBH News YouTube channel and online at gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. We are live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library and live on our GBH News YouTube channel. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III, joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley I and James Bennett II. So, Saturday Night Live, you may have heard of it, turns 50 this weekend, or at least they celebrate their 50th birthday this weekend. I think the actual birthday is in October. They're throwing quite a party, a concert that is going to be live streamed. That's happening tonight. A rebroadcast of the show's first episode on Saturday in the normal Saturday Night Live slot, and then Sunday a 3-hour live anniversary special. Before we get into this, let's hear a little sample of the laughter that SNL has brought us over the last, count it, 50 years.
Cheeseburger, 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 cheeseburger.
Well, isn't that special?
We come from France.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Hey, who's directing this picture? Me. Who wrote this picture? Me. This is the Gumby story, damn it. And Gumby does not say damn it.
Look marvelous. Absolutely marvelous, eh?
Thank you.
From what I've heard, you're using your paper not for writing, but for rolling doobies. You're gonna be doing a lot of doobie rolling when you're living in a van down by the river.
This place has everything. Glass, steam, bear traps, and just when you think the fun is over, knock, knock, who's there? It's Black George Washington.
I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
And I can see Russia from my house.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
That's not a bad show. They've done some things.
I know what they're doing.
So where do we stand right now? 50 years on, Saturday Night Live. Is it, we were just talking, it's kind of like we were just talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like kind of an institution and a quote-unquote institution. I think Saturday Night Live in some ways is the same way. You look at it, is it still vital after 50 years? Can it be? Are retrospectives the beginning of the end? I don't know. What's our take on where we stand right now? What is Saturday Night Live for us right now?
I think Saturday Night Live is in transition.
Yeah.
To James's question about who's in the audience, I think they're figuring that out. There's a mix of folks in the audience, as I see it, but they're trying to figure out where are the buttons to tap that really draw in the numbers that they used to get all the time. And they still get at some, different points. Every now and then there'll be some flashes of brilliance that are just born of the moment. I'm thinking of when Adele, was at the Thanksgiving dinner table and they used her songs or whatever. They're very clever. And I can't think of people who have been actors on the show who didn't have a range of talent that made it work. But I would say it's in transition, and we'll see what happens next chapter.
Yeah, part of that transition too is just SNL's embrace of YouTube.
Yeah.
I think over the past maybe I'm going to just say 10 years, I feel that I'm able to kind of connect over a sketch that I've seen because it's made the rounds on the internet and you're not kind of plugged into your TV at 11:05 p.m. potentially past your bedtime. I don't know, but I think what's going to be really interesting about this 50th anniversary thing is them showing that pilot, because you're able to see the progression, right, of American comedy, of what America as a culture found funny then, what we joked about then, what was in the news then. The first host, right, was George Carlin, and he's doing this that football baseball monologue, which is so funny and still so incredibly resonant. Nothing's changed. Also, just as a fun fact, apparently George Carlin was not in any sketches as host because he had choked up a little bit too much before the show. Yes.
Okay, so let's break down what's going to happen this weekend. So they start tonight with a concert. We got to, one of the things that I think on the one hand you never forget, on the other hand sometimes gets lost, is how important the music has been to Saturday Night Live from the beginning, and how big of a deal it is culturally in the music sphere. So the concert tonight's going to be hosted by Jimmy Fallon. They have I think this lineup is incredible. It's Bonnie Raitt, David Byrne from the Talking Heads, the B-52s, Cher, who we all know is sort of our avatar here at the Culture Show. But Snoop Dogg, Arcade Fire, Backstreet Boys, Eddie Vedder, Jack White, Lady Gaga, The Roots, Mumford & Sons, Preservation Hall Jazz Band. Huge lineup at Radio City Music Hall, streaming live tonight at 8 o'clock. Are you going to tune in?
Not to the Snoop Dogg part, but okay.
Yeah, I was going to say he is in your doghouse, Callie, so to speak.
He's
just want to mute the TV,
Yeah,
and I'm glad you brought that up, Edgar, just about how much the music the music means and has meant to the culture of the show. How sometimes the sketches could get musical. How sometimes the musicians could prove their acting chops on the show. One of my favorites, weirdly enough, is when Drake was hosting, and you got to be reminded, like, oh yeah, he is like a genuinely like funny guy that can bridge this pop music with making us laugh on our TV. And so
I would say that about Bad Bunny's appearance too.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
And it's a huge part of the show. It's not just a sideshow, right? It's built in, and it's kind of upsetting sometimes too to think about how licensing works, because when you go back to watch a lot of those old episodes, they cut out the musical performance, because of broadcasting rights and all of that. But yeah.
Okay, so then in what I think is a genuinely neat idea and cool move, in the Saturday slot, they're going to rebroadcast the original very first episode of Saturday Night Live. Are we thumbs up or thumbs down?
Oh, yeah.
We like this idea. Yeah, I think it's cool.
Great episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, okay, so here's the last question. Sunday, 3-hour special. This is live. This will be on both NBC and Peacock. So, this is 3 hours live. It's basically everybody, almost, it sounds like, who is still alive, who has ever been a cast member, is going to be there. Plus, there's going to be musical acts, including Paul McCartney, who we were just talking about. This feels like it has the potential to be a huge event. Do you think it's going to be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, just by the sheer amount of talent. And most importantly, the thing that always made SNL so interesting is because you wanted to see how the talent interacted in odd ways generally. And that made it so interesting to watch and funny. So I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Yeah, and in addition to the talent, right, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch too, and I want to encourage other people to watch it as well, for the production work that goes into it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 3-hour live show on a Saturday night. That's not a thing that really happens, anymore. Remember there was that run from NBC and ABC where they would do the live musicals, Peter Pan and Jesus Christ Superstar and all of that, which I guess kind of tapped into people remembering how much work, how much of an art and a science it is to coordinate, something, again, a 3-hour live show that's a celebration of a ton of talent in one space.
Right.
It's not just, again, an NBC.
And this is top talent now.
Right, exactly.
Nobody's emerging in this group now. They're all top talent.
Everyone is sharp, and that means behind the camera, they got to be even sharper.
But it's also egos and stuff, and I'm thinking about Quincy Jones having to manage all those people. And we are the world.
Oh, my gosh.
And this is like 10 times that.
Well, so let's move from, this is kind of interesting to think about. So you have this kind of the top talent, the established, the SNL at 50. That is, it is kind of, in one way of looking at it, that is like old television, at its best. New television, the world that we're in now, which is a world of YouTube, which is a world of quote-unquote content, one of the biggest things in that world is Mr. Beast. So Mr. Beast had kind of a foray into, I guess, maybe more traditional television, quote-unquote, at least in the modern parlance, in this kind of game show of sorts, Beast Games, the Beast Games, which broadcast or streamed on Amazon Prime. This week was the big finale for this. This guy is huge.
360 million subscribers. He's not my cup of tea, but people love it. And they love it because he keeps amping up the Beast challenges. Last night was the final episode in the 10 episodes. And the top prize was $5 million.
Yeah.
So, this is not
which they kept saying was the most money ever given away on television. In fact, let's hear a little of the trailer for Mr. Beast's foray into streaming live and streaming television with Beast Games.
I am standing on $5 million, the grand prize of the most insane competition show you've ever seen. And competing for it are these 1,000 contestants. Are you all ready? Start the timer.
With massive challenges.
Welcome to the elimination train.
That has never been done on TV before.
The stakes have never been higher.
Are you a Mr. Beast person, James?
No, but I am I'm fascinated by this person. My one thought, and I'm sure a lot of us think this, is where does all of that money come from? And it is from the insane amount of money that he gets, from sponsorships that he then turns around into giveaways in
Eyeballs
this series
equal
of
dollars.
challenges.
I mean, that much is true in streaming and in old television, right? Eyeballs are dollars.
And it's the kind of the conclusion of this, again, this weird place in America that we're at, where we want people to be happy and to have everything that they need, as long as there's a protagonist attached to that. We don't think about a welfare program. But if you have a couple $100,000, a couple $1 million to give to one person on a platform where everybody can see it, that's the feel-good story. And so it just feels kind of weird in this case, because you said $5 million, but I think they upped the ante.
It ended up being 10.
Yes.
That is an insane amount of money just to kind of play with, and I think that over the course of it, he wound up giving out even more money than that.
He did.
There were all these challenges along the way.
Yeah.
One of the things I find fascinating about, so I watched a couple of these episodes. I'd seen a little of the Mr. Beast stuff before here and there, but I kind of dipped into this, and it's interesting because I am in my heart of hearts, I'm a huge game show person, and in a way, this is sort of like a game show on steroids.
Oh, absolutely.
But watching it, one of the things that made me feel uncomfortable about what I didn't like about it is that it, to me, was in the mold of a game show that I've always hated, which is the Newlywed Game, especially the 80s version with Bob Eubanks, because there was a little bit of a mean spirit in that game, right? In a lot of these games, I think about somebody like Monty Hall and Let's Make a Deal, because Mr. Beast's a little bit of a Monty Hall. Now, you know that Monty Hall worked for the house, and you know he was trying to kind of scheme you a little bit, but you never got the feeling that he wasn't also somehow secretly pulling for you. With Mr. Beast and his kind of cadre of dudes that are with him, it sort of feels like they're trolling everybody a little bit, and they think, isn't it kind of funny that these people even care? And isn't it kind of funny that these people are trying? And isn't it kind of funny that we can toy with them?
Yes.
And I don't like that.
Yeah, and that may be a part and parcel of his still very immature self. He's quite young.
Yeah.
I will say two things. First of all, he's been sued a couple of times. Once from some guests who felt like they weren't treated well, and others who have charged him with sexual harassment. However, on the other side of this, which is, I don't know, it's all part of the mix, he gives away a lot of money to charity. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
And in different, not the quote typical charities.
Oh. What a romantic. What a romantic moment.
Production was like, wrap it up.
That is our lightning round on this Valentine's Day here at the Boston Public Library. If you haven't checked us out, check us out on our YouTube channel. You can see some incredible Valentine's outfits from James and Callie here. Callie, where did you get those heart sunglasses?
This is from State Senate President Karen Spilka's Galentine's party last night.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. A little bit of a different style lightning round today in honor of Valentine's Day. What we're going to do is I'm going to throw some topics out. We're going to get a kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle from Callie and James on some Valentine's Day themed things. Are we ready? Mm-hmm. All right, how about the day itself? Are we generally thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle on Valentine's Day as a holiday? Callie.
I like it, even though I'm bitter about other things, but I like it.
Like it but bitter. Where do you fall on that one, James?
It can be thumbs up.
Yeah, I sort of feel like I feel like for me Valentine's Day, unlike certain holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving, there's a similarity to them. Yeah. Valentine's Day is sort of, to me, it depends on the year whether I feel like celebrating it or not. I kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
All right, so Valentine's Day cards. Yes, no.
Oh, yes.
Do you send a lot of them?
I have in the past, since I'm not this year, but my dad's just used to send beautiful mini cards to my mom every year.
Yeah, well, that's really sweet. James?
I have not sent cards since I was maybe in 4th grade. But I do have a friend.
There's a whole industry.
I know. I'm a letters guy. And it takes time to sit down and write a letter with an original thought.
All right.
But I do have a friend that does cards every single year. And it does mean something a little.
Yeah.
When it's like, I got a card too. Thank you.
Yeah. I sort of feel like I remember, for me, the card thing, you said you haven't sent one since you were in 4th grade. being in grade school and like even the process from like going to the store with my mom to pick out some Valentine's Day cards that I was going to write to the class and then like thinking about what I was going to write on everybody's card and then getting mine, that is still a very like strong emotional memory for me. That sticks with me.
But the difference between then and now, Edgar, is that you get to choose who those cards go to.
That's true.
You're a kid. I don't want to give you a card.
Yeah. Okay. Candy as a gift. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle.
Now, good candy. Don't run into the drugstore at the last minute.
No.
And please, let's just be thoughtful about it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a good escape present if you get good candy. I personally don't like candy, and people close to me know that they shouldn't get it for me because I'll give it away.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, there you go. That works.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on going out for Valentine's Day, like the romantic dinner or like getting out of the house and doing like a big old date? Yes or no?
Well, I like both of them, so I'm, talking out of both sides of my mouth. Because sometimes that romantic dinner is just so fun, and it's nice to be out at a time when everybody's kind of celebrating the same thing. And other times it just feels like very commercial, and so doing an intimate thing at home would be nicer.
I'm into going out in part because it's tied to my thing about Valentine's Day that it can be good. It's just a different excuse of a day. If Valentine's Day was on a Wednesday, it would be like, whatever. All right, I'll finish work. But guess what? I have plans tonight because I can have those plans. So, and the prefix deals are fantastic on Valentine's Day.
That is true. That's a good one.
All right, here's another one. So Valentine's Day, does it extend to platonic love or is it just for romantic love?
I got a lot of Valentines from just very dear friends today.
Really?
Yes, texts and little notes. Just, holding up our friendship and talking about what it means to them. It's just can be very sweet either way. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I think that we live in a romantic, obsessed culture, but just remember that in a lot of places in the world, Valentine's Day is for friends and family in equal measure.
That's correct.
I would agree with that. I agree with that. Especially, I grew up with two sisters, and my mom, she was like, now go give this to your sister for Valentine's Day. I was like, but I don't love her that way, Mom. She's like, yes, you do. You love your sisters, so. Yeah, that's kind of mine there. All right, real quick, but we got to go really quick. But do you have a good tip of something to do on Valentine's Day?
Well, I told you guys this before the show, which is my former beau sending me 11 roses because what? I was the 12th one.
Yeah, that's a flex. That's pretty good.
I've looked into this, and it is a lot of money that might require a year of budgeting. But there are some spas, including at least one in this city, where you can get vino therapy. If you don't know what that is a wine bath that is apparently great for your skin and very good for splitting the cost down the middle.
Well, there you have it. That's all for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in Monday. We'll have more for you. Our thanks to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Our thanks to the Lennox Hotel and the Newsfeed Cafe. For Callie Crossley and James Bennett II, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Have a great Valentine's Day. Feel the love out there this weekend. We'll see you next time.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered at 4.